Chapter 926. After an hour, Ji-yoon finally returned. Wang Fei, thank goodness you were cautious. Tang Xiu didn't dare to act rashly and only ordered someone to keep an eye on him. However, the weather is too bad. That person probably didn't want to be drenched in the rain and left just now. Qin Yining said, then let's go back first. Standing up, Qin Yining took the cloak Bing Tang handed to him and put it on. He smiled as he turned to speak to head shopkeeper Yin. Don't worry, I will come earlier tomorrow. I will have a plan when the time comes. Yes. Head shopkeeper Yin bowed respectfully and sent Qin Yining out the side door. Qin Yining returned to the inn's courtyard. When Xie Yu and the others returned, he immediately sent someone to invite them in. Xie Yu knew that Qin Yining had something to do and hurriedly rushed over. Wang Fei, did something happen at Sitong number today? Sir Xie, don't worry. Please sit. Xie Yu saw that Qin Yining's expression was normal and nothing was out of the ordinary. Only then did she relax. She sat down to the side and cupped her hands as she asked, does Wang Fei have any orders? Qin Yining then told Xie Yu about his encounter with Guan Dahu's group at Sitong number today. Xie Yu also said, today, when I was looking for a suitable residence in the city, I heard some people talking about this matter. They said that a group of people had been knocking on the doors of large families to ask for money. At that time, this old one had not made any connections to this matter. Wang Fei should already have an idea, right? Yes, this is what I was thinking. Qin Yining moved closer to Xie Yu and whispered his plan. He asked, Sir Xie, what do you think of my idea? Is it feasible? Xie Yu was very decisive. She had cooperated with Xu Weiji in the past, and Xu Weiji had come up with several feasible solutions. Xie Yu had heard of them, and she was sure that any one of them would be the best choice for them. After listening to Qin Yining's plan today, he immediately clapped his hands and said, wonderful. Wang Fei's chain of plans is very good. Qin Yining smiled and said, I'm relieved to hear that. If that's the case, I'll have to trouble you tomorrow. Don't worry about it. It's easy. Xie Yu looked at Qin Yining and then said with a smile, the boss of Sai Tong restaurant is a woman, and a pretty one at that. Anyone who wants to know would know. To say something unpleasant, if it was someone else pretending to be Boss Chiu, it would take more effort. Wang Fei, you don't have to. After settling on a plan, Qin Yining woke up early the next morning and ate breakfast. Then, he went to look for Xie Yu. Xie Yu had Qin Yining change into men's clothing. She darkened her face and made her eyebrows slightly thicker. Then, she used a special kind of glue to move the corners of her eyes slightly. Qin Yining didn't feel uncomfortable, but when she looked in the mirror, the shape of her eyes had changed. The corners of her eyes were even raised. Then, she added a few small moles on her face. Qin Yining felt as if he had changed his face. Sir Xie's wonderful hands are truly admirable. Qin Yining sat on the embroidered stool and had Bing Tang help her tie her hair up into a man's bun. Then, he fastened it with a hairpin. Then, she took the waist belt that Bing Tang gave her and put it on. Then, she hung the maple leaf-shaped green jade pendant on the waist belt. Xie Yu looked at Qin Yining and said with a smile, it said that the eyes are the most important part of a person's facial features. Princess Consort's eyes have changed. Your eyebrows have also been drawn differently. Your entire temperament seems to have changed. Qin Yining smiled and said, isn't it all because Sir Xie has done a lot of research in this area? It was fortunate that she had brought Xie Yu along. Otherwise, she wouldn't know what to do if she encountered this kind of situation. Qin Yining still brought the same people from yesterday to accompany her to Sitong restaurant. They still walked through the side door. After drinking tea at Sitong restaurant for a while, they waited quietly for a while. Then, head shopkeeper Yin rushed in. Princess Consort, they're here. Qin Yining grunted when she heard this. When she stood up, she instructed, from now on, you have to call me boss. You can't call me by the wrong name. Also, the shop assistants are not allowed to say anything. Yes. Head shopkeeper Yin agreed happily and said with a smile, boss, don't worry. I won't say anything wrong. Qin Yining then ordered Bing Tang and Ji Yun to hide behind, leaving only Zi Yuan and Han Xiao behind. Ji Yun and Bing Tang often followed her. When she was kidnapped by Sai Qin in the cave, Bing Tang and Ji Yun were both present. It was difficult to guarantee that they wouldn't be recognized by Guan Dahu. It was safer to bring two unfamiliar faces with her. Qin Yining asked head shopkeeper Yin to invite them in. Not long after, there was a burst of footsteps outside. Head shopkeeper Yin politely led a group of people into the central room. Qin Yining didn't get up. She glanced at the group of 5 people who came in. She recognized the 2 leaders at a glance. They were indeed the people who were thrown into the desert by Sai Qin with Mrs. Liao that day. It was said that the reason they were able to walk out of the desert alive was because they treated Mrs. Liao as food. Thinking of this, Qin Yining felt a burst of discomfort. She suppressed the feeling of disgust and said with a smile, "It turns out that you are distinguished guests. Please take a seat." Guan Dahu was a little surprised by the beauty of the person in front of him. It was rumored that the owner of Sitong restaurant was a woman, but he didn't know that she looked like this. However, Guan Dahu had never cared about women's charms, so he put it aside after looking at her. "Since boss is willing to invite us brothers to talk at the back, you must already know that we are going to do a big business, right?" Qin Yining smiled and said, "I only know the general idea. Why don't you tell me in detail what kind of business you are going to do? How much money do you need to invest, and how long will it take for you to see your capital return?" Guan Dahu was speechless by Qin Yining's questions. Before they came, they had visited so many people, and those people had looked at them with fear and anger. They simply didn't analyze their words in detail and only thought that it was an excuse to make money. This was the first time that someone had asked such detailed questions. It was obvious that they were going to do business with them. Guan Dahu coughed. Liu Ban immediately understood. He tore open half of his shirt, revealing his thick and solid arms. He shook the muscles on his chest and arms. "Ha ha." With a loud roar, he began to practice his martial arts on the spot. Qin Yining didn't know what kind of martial arts this person was practicing, but it seemed that his martial arts weren't bad. In addition, he suddenly rushed into the courtyard and wrapped his arms around the water jar. He shook his arms and lifted the water jar up. Qin Yining looked like he was watching a monkey show. He repeatedly praised, "Good martial arts, good arm strength." Only then did Guan Dahu smile and say, "As you can see, we brothers are all skilled in martial arts. The person just now was the weakest among us. If we join forces, there's nothing in Huichuan County that can stop us. To be honest, our business this time is a business without any capital. Have you heard that the Taitan agreed to pay tribute after losing the war? The Taitan currently has a large number of imperial concubines to be transported to the capital. We brothers have long disliked the Taitan people, so we plan to recruit soldiers and buy horses to teach them a lesson. While we're at it, we'll snatch all the tributes." Qin Yining really hadn't heard of this matter. However, at this time, he only showed surprise and panic in the face of such an unexpected situation. "This." Qin Yining lowered his voice, "You can't say this carelessly. Are you really going to rob the Taitan's tributes?" Ha ha ha. At this time, Liu Ban entered the room and put on his clothes. When he saw Qin Yining panicking like a frightened rabbit, he couldn't help but laugh mockingly. Guan Dahu and the others who came along with him were also laughing. In the end, she was a woman who couldn't stand being scared. Guan Dahu laughed, his hoarse voice containing a bit of bewitchment and threat. "Of course, we won't tell anyone about this matter. However, I believe that you're definitely not an ordinary weak woman since you can do such a big business. The most important thing in business is to keep one's word. You should also be a person who keeps her word. Because you said that you want to cooperate with us, we're telling you." The meaning of Guan Dahu's words was very clear. They had already told the people in the four-way shop what they were going to do. If the four-way shop refused to cooperate, they definitely wouldn't let it go. Moreover, if the secret was leaked in the future, it would be related to the four-way shop. Qin Yining couldn't help but sneer in his heart. Look, what kind of people the Qingtian alliance had raised. They would even rob and rob. For a treasure, they would go around robbing and threatening. They would do all kinds of shameless things. As the leader of the alliance, she was also sullen. If these people were brought out by her, she would immediately order people to deal with them. However, Qin Yining's face didn't reveal any flaws. He was a bit worried, but more than that, he was excited. Are you really going to cause trouble for the Taytan people? Hearing this, Guan Dahu immediately felt that there was a chance. This person seemed to have a grudge against the Taytan. Of course, Guan Dahu said righteously. Don't be fooled by our group of brothers. We are all hot-blooded men. In this chaotic world, we don't have the opportunity to farm. The Taytan people also don't treat the Daju people at the border as human beings. They would come to plunder grain for no reason, burning, killing, robbing, and committing all kinds of crimes. Although the Taytan people have been defeated and have admitted defeat, I still don't like them and have long wanted to deal with them. Good. Qin Yining clapped his hands in joy. Seeing Qin Yining like this, the other heroes who came with him also looked as if their blood was boiling for the sake of their country. The iron of the Taytan people is not a good thing. If you want to get the Taytan people, not to mention 50 taels, I can even pay 500 taels. Moreover, you are robbing the Taytan tributes. Isn't this business a sure profit for us? Qin Yining's eyes revealed a greedy light. Guan Dahu and Liu Ban looked at each other. In their hearts, they thought that this stupid woman was really greedy. However, it was also because of her greed that they were able to get more money from her to hire people from the Haifeng stockade. Thinking up to here, Liu Ban and Guan Dahu said in unison, "Yes, this is definitely a profitable business." Qin Yining smiled and said, "Good. How much money do you need to recruit people and how much money do you still lack?" Chapter 927. 3,000 taels? Qin Yining furrowed his brows and said in an unusual tone, "Are you going to hire thousands of soldiers and horses? 3,000 taels of silver is enough to feed an army." Guan Dahu raised his eyebrows. He was very displeased with Qin Yining's tone. However, the Four Links was a large business and the owner had the right to be arrogant. Moreover, this was a woman. A good man doesn't fight with a woman. Guan Dahu said, "How can there not be money for people and horses? Moreover, we are going to rob the Taytan's tribute convoy. We are facing real Taytan cavalry. If we aren't careful, we might even lose our lives. Even if we can't be responsible for their lives, we still have to give their families money, right? Moreover, there are many unexpected situations. Buying weapons and horses is also money." Speaking to this point, Guan Dahu took a sip of tea to moisten his hoarse throat. Ever since they came out of the desert, his hoarse voice had become even more hoarse. "Moreover, we aren't taking the Four Links money for free. Isn't this considered your investment? The more you invest, the more you will get when the matter is done." Qin Yining nodded in relief, "That's true." Liu Ban lowered his head and curled his lips. Not to mention that they would run away after they got the treasure, they wouldn't give the money to this bitch. Even if they did give it to her, how could she join them in the robbery? How could she determine how much money there was in total? This 4-channel signal was most likely activated by luck, right? Or was there someone else in their family who was in charge and this bitch was just a shield? Liu Ban wasn't the only one who thought this. The others also thought the same. He felt that she was a woman after all. She was easy to fool. Qin Yining noticed that the three of them were looking at her strangely. He couldn't help but sneer in his heart. However, he put on an ambitious expression. "How about this? We'll do as you say. 3,000 taels. After you succeed, I want 50% of the profits." Liu Ban frowned and said unhappily, 50%? You're asking for too much. Don't forget, the ones who are going to risk their lives are us brothers. You didn't do anything, yet you have the nerve to ask for 50%. Qin Yining, on the other hand, was calm and collected. He displayed the crafty side of a businessman to the fullest. "Don't forget, if I don't fork out this sum of money, you won't even have a 50% chance of winning." These words caused Liu Ban to choke. The others were also speechless. They looked at Guan Dahu with questioning gazes. Guan Dahu was a little annoyed by Qin Yining's arrogant attitude. But on second thought, as long as the 4 channels was willing to pay, their matter would be settled. If the 4 channels was unwilling to pay, they wouldn't even have the chance to hire the Blackwind stockade. What's more, whether it was 50-50, 30-70, 40-60, they didn't plan to give a single cent. Thinking up to this point, Guandahu felt that Liu Ban was being too impulsive. He smiled and said, "You're right. How about this? We'll do as you said. After we're done, we'll split the profits equally. As for how much money we need to recruit soldiers, buy horses, and buy weapons, we'll deal with it ourselves. What do you think?" "Good, good." Qin Yining clapped his hands and smiled. "In that case, I wish you all success in advance." He turned around and said to Zi Yuan, "Go and tell the shopkeeper to withdraw 3,000 taels of silver." Zi Yuan and Han Xiao, who were standing on the side, were stunned. When they were suddenly called, they came back to their senses. They quickly calmed down and said, "Yes, boss." Then, they quickly walked out. After waiting for a while, Zi Yuan came back with a thick stack of 100 taels of silver. She handed it to Qin Yining with both hands. Qin Yining smiled and waved his hand. He raised his chin and signaled her to give it to Guandahu. Guandahu, Liu Ban, and the others' eyes were almost hanging on the silver. At this time, their eyes were shining and they were very excited. Guandahu calmly took the silver, counted it, and put it away. Then, he stood up and said, "Good, Boss Chiu is very straightforward. Since you're happy, we're happy too. We'll immediately take action. When we get good news, we'll tell you. Goodbye." "Wait a minute." Qin Yining called out softly. Guandahu and Liu Ban both frowned and looked at Qin Yining. Qin Yining said, "Let's count the money clearly. Let's also write a written agreement. Let's go to the front desk and write a written agreement." Guandahu thought that no matter what they wrote, he wouldn't be able to return the money. It didn't matter whether they wrote a written agreement or not. Therefore, he nodded without hesitation. Qin Yining didn't say much. They went to the front and wrote down the amount clearly. The reason was that they were investing in a business. In the end, both sides signed and pressed their fingerprints. Guandahu signed the agreement with the name Li Dazhuang. Qin Yining signed the agreement with the name Chiu Gui. In any case, Boss Chiu was a woman. She couldn't casually reveal her maiden name. If she wrote something randomly, the other party wouldn't take it to heart since they were here to swindle her. There were 2 copies of the agreement. Both sides carefully held them close to their chests. Only then did Qin Yining say, "Then I congratulate Brother Li on your victory." "Not a problem. Boss Chiu, please wait. Brothers, take care." Qin Yining smiled as he sent them to the door. Seeing the good men put on their bamboo hats and straw raincoats and quickly disappear into the rain, Qin Yining turned around and gave Tang Xiu, who was standing in the corner of the room, a look. Tang Xiu immediately came over. Qin Yining whispered into his ear, "Send someone to keep an eye on them. Don't alert them." "Yes." Tang Xiu immediately nodded and went to make the arrangements. Qin Yining, head shopkeeper Yin, and the others returned to the central room. Head shopkeeper Yin said, "Wang Fei, what do you think these people are planning to do? Can they be trusted?" Naturally, Qin Yining couldn't casually talk about the treasure. Just now, Ziyuan cleverly went to find Ji Yun and Bing Tang and used the money they brought. Therefore, Qin Yining wouldn't tell head shopkeeper Yin about the details. He only smiled and said, "Don't worry, I have a plan for this matter. You just have to control your subordinates well and don't reveal my identity." Head shopkeeper Yin nodded repeatedly. How could he dare to talk nonsense? If he ruined Qin Yining's plan, it would be equivalent to offending Prince Zhongshuren. If he offended Prince Zhongshuren, wouldn't he offend his boss? "Don't worry, including me, I will take good care of all the underlings and not reveal any secrets." "That's good. Thank you for your hard work." Qin Yining rested for a while in sitong room. After Tang Xiu confirmed that there was no tail, he quietly returned to the inn. Xie Yu had been waiting for Qin Yining for a long time. When she saw Qin Yining coming back with his subordinates, she couldn't help but smile and say, "Wang Fei, did everything go well today?" "Everything went well. Everything was expected." Qin Yining smiled and sat down at the head of the table. He told Xie Yu about what had happened today. Finally, he said, "I've already ordered people to follow them and see what they're going to do. In my opinion, What these people said about recruiting people should be true. They probably want to find more people to carry the stones. Qin Yining nodded, I think so too. Now, let's wait for the news first. It would be better if the spies could see their specific plan clearly. Xie Yu smiled and said, that's right. Both of them laughed. Qin Yining then asked about the residence. We've already found one. The location of the house is pretty good. It's a two-sectioned residence. The original family only had an elderly couple and a few servants. They said that the entire family moved back to their hometown. They're not in a hurry to sell this residence, but if the price is right, they can sell it. When Wang Fei is free, let's go take a look. Okay. The residence that Sir Xie has his eyes on should be pretty good. After Qin Yining and Xie Yu discussed, they went to wash their faces and wash off their disguises. Before washing their faces, they carefully observed their faces and even remembered the positions of the small moles. At night, Jinghu Wei, who Tang Xiu had arranged to gather information, came back. Qin Yining put on his clothes and came out to meet them. Wang Fei. This subordinate followed that group of people. They took the money and ate a big meal at a restaurant. Then, they left the city before the city gates were closed and went straight to a famous mountain in the northwest. There's a stronghold on the mountain. It seems to be a bandit's nest. This subordinate followed them from afar and did not let them discover our tracks. However, in order to avoid alerting them, we did not follow them. When we came back, we took the opportunity to ask for water from the scattered poor families nearby. That stronghold is called Heifeng Stronghold. There are about 100 good men in that stronghold. They usually rob the rich and don't care about helping the poor. However, their appetite is also very big. They even rob the poor. So those people went to contact Heifeng Stronghold? Should be. Qin Yining nodded and said with a smile, it's been hard on you. I've asked them to heat up some chicken soup for you on the stove. Since you're tired now, ask them to cook noodles for you. Go and wash up first. The noodles will be sent over in a while. Jinghu Wei had followed Qin Yining for a long time. When he heard this, he did not stand on ceremony. He grinned and said, thank you, Wang Fei. He cupped his hands and left. Bing Tang then went to the stove to cook. Qin Yining draped his clothes over himself and hugged a hot water bottle. He sat on the edge of the bed with Ji Yun. Ji Yun said in a low voice, Wang Fei, do you think those people took the money to cooperate with the people in Heifeng Stronghold? Qin Yining nodded, it must be. The treasure is hidden very deep. Without manpower, they can't steal the stones. They must have used another set of excuses when they went to Heifeng Stronghold. For example, they wanted to cause trouble for the imperial court. They only said that they hired the good men on the mountain to help steal the stones for the emperor's mausoleum to vent their anger. Ji Yun nodded and said, they used the excuse of robbing the Tatan. The mountain bandits of Heifeng Stronghold are living well. Who would be willing to fight with the Tartans? That's right. Qin Yining smiled and nodded. Then, a hint of worry appeared between his brows. Ji Yun saw this and asked with some confusion, what's wrong, Wang Fei? Everything is going according to your plan. Isn't this good? Chapter 928. Ji Yun was stunned by the question. She blinked her long eyelashes and thought for a while. Then, she shook her head and said, this servant doesn't think so. Think about it. If they knew where the treasure was hidden, wouldn't they have thought of a way to steal it long ago? No matter how valuable the treasure is, it can't fit in too many boxes, right? The reason why they didn't make a move is because there are too many stones to move. Their goal is uncertain. Qin Yining nodded in agreement, you're right. I also think that even if they know, they only know the approximate location. So, I'm thinking that if they really do move it, it'll be fine if they move all of it. But if they move half of it and leave half of it behind, when the construction starts, the moment they move the stones, the gold, silver, and precious stones will scatter all over the ground. That scene was simply too frightening. Qin Yining couldn't help but rub his brows as he spoke. The silver was engraved with the words manufactured and year. At a glance, one could tell that it was from the Dian dynasty. It was easy to analyze that it was the batch of silver that was hidden by the Dian dynasty's incapable ruler. Once Li Chitian found out about this, things would be difficult to handle. Guan Dahu's motley crew would definitely not be able to defeat the army arranged by Li Chitian. At that time, if Li Chitian obtained the treasure and had the money and the confidence, wouldn't he come to torment Pang Xiao? Qin Yining shook his head. This matter definitely could not be allowed to happen. Qin Yining hugged the quilt and thought for a while. Finally, he made up his mind and asked Ji Yun to call Tang Xiu over. Ji Yun was already sleepy and yawning. When she heard this, she still didn't say anything. She hurriedly pulled on her wooden clogs, put on her small jacket, and went out. Qin Yining put on a cloak with large sleeves and casually tied up her long hair. Then, she sat outside and waited. Not long after, Tang Xiu came. Although she was woken up right after she fell asleep, she was still in high spirits. "Princess consort, do you have any orders?" "Yes. There's an urgent matter that requires you to arrange for someone to do quickly. Please give your orders." Tang Xiu cupped her hands. Qin Yining gestured for her to come closer and whispered, "Arrange for a trustworthy brother to secretly return to the capital and send a message to Wang Yi. Tell him that everything went smoothly when we came to Huichuan County. However, there's one thing that's not good. There's a problem." "There. Wang." Tang Xiu blinked, a little dumbfounded. Where did Princess Consort's words come from? If they, the elite Tiger Guards, had followed Wang Fei, they would not have allowed Wang Fei to be harassed by He Fengzhai's bandits right under their noses. Wouldn't they have been dragged to the drill grounds by Wang Yi to be taught a lesson? Qin Yining saw Tang Xiu's dazed expression and understood what they were thinking. He chuckled and said, "You don't have to worry. Wang Yi is a smart person. He will understand my intentions immediately. He won't blame you." Tang Xiu's thoughts were exposed. She shyly scratched the back of her head and blushed. As if she was afraid of embarrassing herself, she carefully glanced at Ji Yun's expression. Ji Yun also didn't expect Tang Xiu to look at her with such a silly expression. She couldn't help but blush. She glared at him and looked away. Qin Yining looked at the two of them and understood. He knew that Ji Yun was thin-skinned, so he didn't expose her. He only smiled and said, "It's been hard on you. Go quickly." "Yes, this subordinate will go immediately." Tang Xiu's expression was serious. She responded softly and turned to leave. After she left, Ji Yun went to close the door. When she turned around, she met Qin Yining's playful gaze. She couldn't help blushing and said, "Wang Fei, it's late. You should rest." Qin Yining smiled and said, "All right. Come over. Let's sleep together. When Bing Tang comes back, let her sleep on the warm kang." "Okay." Ji Yun responded. The two of them climbed onto the bed. They each covered themselves with a blanket and lay down next to each other. In the darkness, Qin Yining asked Ji Yun softly, "I see that Imperial bodyguard Tang has a good character. He is also upright. He seems to have some feelings for you. Ji Yun, what do you think?" Ji Yun was suddenly asked these questions. She woke up from her sleep and said shyly and anxiously, "Wang Fei, why are you learning from that bad girl, Bing Tang?" When Qin Yining heard this tone, he knew that Ji Yun was really moved. He couldn't help but laugh and tease, "How am I bad? Besides, you're already at this age. It's time for you to consider marriage. This isn't a bad thing." Qin Yining turned over and nudged Ji Yun. "Hey, what do you think of him? If you have the heart, I can ask Wang Yi to help you look into his family background for your reference. You're someone by my side. Even if you get married in the future, you'll have to return to my side to be a steward. If his family's situation is complicated, we'll have to consider it. He doesn't seem to have any relatives in his family. Just like me, he was saved by Wang Yi. If it wasn't for Wang Yi, he would have starved to death." Ji Yun's tone was slightly anxious. Qin Yining smiled and said, "So you already know so much." Ji Yun then realized that she seemed to have fallen into a trap. She had unknowingly exposed her understanding of Tang Xiu. She couldn't help but say angrily, "Wang Fei is really too bad." She hugged the quilt and turned her back to Qin Yining. "It's so late. This servant won't talk to you anymore. This servant wants to sleep. Qin Yining looked at Ji Yun's back and couldn't help but smile. All right. I won't ask anymore. I'm going to sleep too. Although the situation was tense and the matter of the treasure was tricky, Qin Yining liked the people around her from the bottom of her heart when she saw them so energetic. Ji Yun and Bing Tang had gone through life and death with her. They were loyal to her. She had to be responsible for their future. She also had to consider what kind of person Tang Xiu was before deciding. Jinghu Wei rushed to the capital on horseback. Even in the rainy weather, his speed was faster than Qin Yining's group of carriages. Therefore, Pang Xiao received a message 3 days later. That afternoon, Pang Xiao sent out invitations to invite his former subordinates to the Wang Fu to drink. Pang Xiao had been demoted to be an official in the construction of the imperial mausoleum. The generals were more or less dissatisfied. Many of them had already seen the end of their lives from Pang Xiao's experience. Everyone had shed their blood together on the battlefield. Some of them had even been saved by Pang Xiao. The scars on Pang Xiao's body were left behind because of them. Therefore, it was fine if Pang Xiao didn't invite anyone, but he took the initiative to send out invitations. These people all arrived. Pang Xiao was originally not allowed to drink because he was recuperating from his illness. But seeing that his brothers were happy, he still ate a few big bowls. These former subordinates also drank too much. When a man drank too much, it was inevitable that he would be excited and talk too much. Pang Xiao was tongue-tied. His voice was also much louder than usual. He slammed the table and said incoherently, "Everyone, tell me, what kind of man am I? I'm a son. My son can't protect me, and my father can't protect me either. My whole family, including my father-in-law's family, is gone, all gone." Speaking of this sad matter, Pang Xiao's eyes were filled with hot tears. He took a big gulp of wine. When these subordinates heard this, their hearts were also filled with sorrow. A few with shallow eye sockets had already started to howl. Huzi and Shu Weiji brought people to pour wine to warm up the atmosphere. When they saw this scene, even those who knew the inside story were affected by the emotions. Their noses also turned sour. Your Majesty really treated Wang Yi too unfairly. He didn't reward Wang Yi for his meritorious service, but he went around looking for flaws. Even if he didn't have any, he still wanted to make one up for him. Who would be able to withstand such treatment? Pang Xiao grabbed the wine bowl with his big hand. This illness of mine came at the wrong time. Fuck. That damn Haifeng stockade. They saw that my wife was pretty, so they flirted with her. If I was useful, my wife wouldn't have to buy a house for me. She wouldn't have been so scared by those bastards from Haifeng stockade that she couldn't sleep. What Haifeng stockade? Wang Yi, are you talking about the stockade in the northwest of Huichuan County? An official in charge of military affairs in the north asked. Pang Xiao's almond-shaped eyes widened. He nodded and said, "That's right, the one next to Huichuan County. It's said that there are more than 100 bandits in their stockade, and they commit all kinds of crimes all day long. This is also because I don't have any troops. When I was in the south, I led my brothers from the South Pacifying Army and attacked every stockade we saw. When the southern bandits saw the flag of the South Pacifying Army, they couldn't wait to kneel down and call me grandpa. I'm now a tiger whose teeth have been pulled out. I'm useless. Otherwise, I'll go and squash those bugs to death." Thinking back to the time when they suppressed BG country, the brothers couldn't help but sigh with emotion. When Pang Xiao suppressed the bandits in the south, they had all heard the details from the storytellers. Every time they heard it, their blood would boil with excitement. Now that they were talking about this at the wine table, the brothers couldn't help but feel agitated. Everyone was cursing and swearing under the influence of alcohol, cursing the 18 generations of the road robbers' ancestors. In the end, the official in charge of military affairs in the north said, "I think it's time for our local garrison troops to learn from Wang Yi and train their troops. When we were conquering the world, the army was like a nest of tigers that came down from the mountains. Now that we've been at peace for too long, won't these brothers who went to serve as garrison troops become a nest of kittens instead? Wang Yi's method of attacking the stockade is good. He can train the troops, see blood, and even get some military pay. Why not? Yes, let them go and attack the Haifeng stockade. Not only can they train the troops, but they can also help Her Highness vent her anger. Yes, yes. Everyone shouted and talked at once. While they were half drunk, they decided on the matter. In the end, Pang Xiao couldn't handle the alcohol. He was so drunk that he laid on the table and started snoring. Everyone also passed out drunk in the main hall of the Wang Fu. Hu Zi and Shu Weiji brought people to carry the guests one by one and sent them to the guest rooms. Pang Xiao was also carried back to the bedroom by Hu Zi and Jinghu Wei. After Jinghu Wei, who carried Pang Xiao, left, Pang Xiao immediately sat up and said in a low voice, "This king is drunk. He might be drunk for 2 days. Tomorrow morning, you will guard the guest rooms and see what they say. If they forget about suppressing the bandits, you can mention it. Wang Yi is afraid that they will pretend to be stupid and not do anything for you." Pang Xiao hiccuped and said helplessly, "After all, I haven't been in office for a long time." No matter how good the relationship between brothers is, it's inevitable that the tea will turn cold when people leave. Just remind them and they will help me out on the surface. Wang Yi, don't worry. Hu Zi nodded with a smile. They won't. Tomorrow, I will pretend to be stupid and remind them. If they don't do anything, we will have plenty of words to shame them. You have so many ideas. Pang Xiao lay down and said, "Tell Mr. Shu to prepare for departure. Arrange for people to go to Zhong Ibor's residence to ask when Zhong Ibor plans to leave. Let's also stop the Imperial Academy of Medicine for the time being." "Yes, I know." Chapter 929. Guan Dahu and the others had been going to Haifeng's stronghold to discuss business for a few days and had already become familiar with the brothers on the mountain. The stronghold leader's nickname was One Blade and he had already become brothers with Guan Dahu and the others. On this day, they had another discussion until night. Guan Dahu said, "The old emperor only cares about himself and doesn't care about the lives of others. We brothers will move the stones he used to build the imperial mausoleum and vent our anger. In the future, we'll have something to talk about. I'm not doing this for anything else, I just want to vent my anger." With a saber and a beard, he laughed and said, "That's great. I like to deal with straightforward people like Brother Guan. To tell you the truth, I've heard of your Qingtian Alliance's reputation in the early years. Your Qingtian Alliance is very powerful in the south and all the men there are like this." As he spoke, he gave a thumbs up. "Brother, I won't lie to you. If it was someone else who came to talk to me about this matter, let alone 3 times, even if it was 300 times, I still wouldn't bring my brothers to do something that could cause me to lose my head. But the way your Qingtian Alliance's brothers do things, our brothers on the mountain are all convinced. I won't be polite with you. 3,000 taels, take it as the money we brothers give to our wives and children to settle down. I'll bring my brothers down and follow you, Brother Dahu. Isn't it just moving stones? We'll definitely give that old emperor a hard time. Whoever backs off is a dog." "Good." Guan Dahu laughed and clinked his wine bowl with One Blade's. One Blade drank a mouthful and laughed heartily. He put his arm around Guan Dahu's shoulder and said, "Brother, hey, in the future, our Haifeng stronghold and Qingtian Alliance will know each other and be on the same side. Our Haifeng stronghold is in the north and Qingtian Alliance is in the south. If there's anything, just say the word. Come, cheers." "Cheers." The two drank another bowl. The meal lasted until midnight and Guan Dahu was almost drunk. However, he still paid the 3,000 taels and agreed to take action on the night of the 16th of May. After finishing the wine, Guan Dahu declined Saber's invitation to stay and went down the mountain with Liu Ban. Liu Ban also drank wine, but he didn't eat as much as Big Tiger. The two of them returned to the small house they were temporarily staying in. After making sure that no one was eavesdropping, Liu Ban asked, "Big brother, you gave the money in advance. Do you think those people from Haifeng Gang will renege on their debt and refuse to go with us?" Guan Dahu opened his mouth and let out a long burp. He shook his head and said, "He won't. Can't you see? That guy One Blade is as cunning as a ghost. He doesn't care about us brothers, but the Green Sky Alliance behind us." The brothers in the underworld all knew that the Green Sky Alliance was very powerful. No matter what, the Black Wind Stockade was just a gang that occupied a mountain and called itself a king. At most, they only had 100 brothers. If the brothers of the Green Sky Alliance gathered together, they would not be able to deal with them. If they agree to my deal, not only will they be able to earn a sum of money, they will also be able to talk to the Green Sky Alliance. Moreover, if the stone is lost, no one will guess that it was stolen by a group of bandits. When bandits have time, they will go rob houses. Who would steal the stone? Liu Ban scratched the back of his head and laughed. Big brother, you have thought it through. That's the reason. Then we can be at ease and wait for the 16th to make our move. Guan Dahu lay down on the Kang bed and listened to the lingering sound of the rain outside. He said, now let's pray that there won't be a big moon on the 16th. There won't be. Liu Ban promised, I don't know about other things, but I know about this. After all, I used to be a farmer, so I know about the weather. This rain won't stop for at least half a month. The clouds will be thick. On the 16th, I guarantee that there will be no moon or stars. It will be a dark night. Hearing this, Guan Dahu felt relieved. He was drunk and started snoring with his mouth open. Liu Ban, on the other hand, was thinking about the large amount of gold and silver that was about to come into his hands. He thought about how he would hug beauties in his arms and eat and drink well. He was so excited that he couldn't sleep for half the night. In the next 2 days, Liu Ban and Guan Dahu brought the rest of the brothers to observe the situation near the stone factory. They had a good idea of the terrain. They also calculated the number of carriages needed to move the stone and the horses in the stronghold. Finally, they arranged the route of the stone and the hiding place of the stone. Everything was ready. They only lacked the east wind. On the 15th, it was raining as usual. The continuous rain didn't make Guan Dahu, Liu Ban, and the others feel irritated. Tomorrow was the day of the operation. Everyone was so excited that they couldn't sleep. In the middle of the night, the brothers were sitting around a simple wooden table. They borrowed the light of an oil lamp to eat meat and drink wine. Suddenly, there was a faint noise coming from the northwest. Guan Dahu was half drunk. Hearing the noise, he put down his bowl and scolded with a smile, "Damn it. What's going on in the mountains? Who cares? That group of people go out to do businesses every few days. Maybe they have some good stuff back home. Are they celebrating?" Liu Ban laughed. The drunkards all nodded. They all felt that doing business without any cost was good. They could earn a lot of money just by using their strength and scaring people. In the middle of the night, everyone was tired from drinking and found a place to sleep. The next afternoon, the group prepared the carriages and carefully checked the transportation route. They chatted and laughed as they headed to the Black Wind stronghold. Who would have thought that when they were walking halfway, they all felt that something was wrong at the same time? Big brother, why are the footprints on the ground wrong? Guan Dahu also lowered his head. After a night of rain, the path up the mountain was very muddy. The messy footprints on the ground were deep and filled with muddy water. Guan Dahu squatted down to check and his face gradually became serious. These footprints were clearly from both up and down the mountain. Most of them looked like they were made by an official's boots. Not good. The Black Wind stronghold is probably. Guan Dahu stood up and hesitantly looked up the mountain. Liu Ban also saw that there was something wrong with the footprints. He anxiously said, then the mountain might have been raided by the government and the city guards. Big brother, I'll go up and take a look. Don't act rashly. Guan Dahu turned around and walked down the mountain. He did not forget to call his brothers. There might be other soldiers guarding the mountain. If we rashly rush up, it will be the same as sending sheep to the tiger's den. If the government really destroyed the stronghold, they will definitely announce it to the outside world to show off their achievements. Let's go back first and wait for the news. But big brother, we already gave the 3,000 taels to the stronghold. If they don't do anything for us, what should we do? Guan Dahu stopped and suddenly turned around to stare at Liu Ban. Do you want to lose the money along with the people? Liu Ban was speechless for a moment. He stared at Guan Dahu with red eyes. He knew that Guan Dahu was right. But it was not easy for them to get so much money. Before they could do anything, it was all gone. The money in their hands had already been used up. If they wanted to gather more money to hire more people, first, they had no way to get money. Second, they couldn't find anyone more suitable than the Black Wind Stockade. Everyone was furious, but there was nothing they could do. They went down the mountain in silence and braved the rain to return to Huichuan City. There, they saw a conspicuous notice in front of the city gate. Even in such a heavy rain, there were still a few commoners looking at it. Some of the literate people read the notice and were overjoyed. The government's army has destroyed the mountain bandit. We are finally at peace here. That's great. This way, we can have a good night's sleep. The commoners were simply rejoicing. But when this good news fell into the ears of Guan Dahu and the others, it was like a bolt from the blue. Liu Ban almost shed tears on the spot. Big brother, what should we do? What should we do? Calm down. Guan Dahu pinched Liu Ban's arm and lightly reprimanded him. Then, he pulled him out of the crowd. The others also followed Guan Dahu's footsteps in a daze. When they arrived at the house they rented in the city, they sat around the table with a worried expression. Liu Ban gritted his teeth and cursed in a low voice, "Those useless things, they are only fit to be mountain bandits for the rest of their lives. They can't handle big things, how could they be caught? It doesn't matter if they are caught. It has nothing to do with us if they all die." But, Guan Dahu said hesitantly, "I am worried that they will confess what we are going to do. If those soldiers know that someone is eyeing the stone used to build the imperial mausoleum, I am afraid that they will tighten the defense. At that time, we will not have a chance to act." Hearing this, the few of them were anxious. "What should we do? Big brother, think of something." "Yes, big brother. If they really confess to us, will the soldiers come looking for us? Should we move to another place?" Guan Dahu had a headache and scolded in a low voice, "All right, don't panic. I will think of something." Compared to the worries of Guan Dahu and the others, Qin Yining was very comfortable. "I didn't expect Wang Yi's side to act so quickly. This will save us a lot of trouble." Bing Tang smiled as he tidied up his makeup box. Ji Yun was also quickly tidying up her clothes. Qin Yining lowered his head and fastened the belt at his waist. "That person always has a way. Now that we have found our house, Wang Yi should be here soon." "That's right." Ji Yun smiled and said, "Wang Yi should come quickly. If Wang Yi doesn't come, won't the princess consort get lovesick?" Qin Yining burst out laughing when he heard this. When did you learn to be glib?" Seeing that Qin Yining blushed shamelessly, Ji Yun said in frustration, "Isn't it all the princess consort's fault? You always learn from that little brat Bing Tang. You always say bad things and only know how to bully people." Bing Tang laughed and said, "Bodyguard Tang is always in front of you. Of course, you won't get lovesick. Hey, Huzi will be here soon. Are you especially happy?" Ji Yun retorted. Bing Tang blushed and snorted, "That's right. I especially like it." Qin Yining watched the two maidservants bicker and shook her head in amusement. This was a new amusement for her recently. Ever since Ji Yun and Tang Xiu's matter had some progress, the two in her room would often tease each other and then blush in embarrassment. "Ari, it's true that a grown girl can't be kept at home." Qin Yining pretended to sigh and walked out of the room with her hands behind her back to put on the wooden box. Ji Yun and Bing Tang were speechless for a moment. In terms of teasing, the princess consort was better. Chapter 930. Qin Yining smiled and replied, "I know." He turned around and teased Ji Yun, "I saw Imperial bodyguard Tang standing not far away just now. You should pay attention to what you say." Ji Yun's face flushed red. She stomped her feet and said, "Princess, you are so bad." When Bing Tang saw her stomping her feet in embarrassment, she pointed at her and laughed. Even Ziyuan and Han Xiao, who had just arrived in Qin Yining's room, also laughed. The sound of laughter in the room spread far and wide. The Jinghu Wei at the entrance of the courtyard also winked at Tang Xiu. Tang Xiu blushed in embarrassment. They were all young people. Tang Xiu and Ji Yun, the head maidservant in the princess's room, were close. Everyone knew that and wished them well in their hearts. It was just that the brothers had a good relationship, so they couldn't help but tease them. When Xie Yu saw that the group of people were so happy, he didn't say anything about the worries in his heart. The residence that Xie Yu found was located in the center of the city. It wasn't far from the yamen and the market. The surrounding neighbors were all quite wealthy. Because they had already made preparations, Qin Yining and his group could live normally after moving in. However, there weren't many servants in the house, so Qin Yining didn't want to buy them immediately. He wanted to wait and see for a while. After everyone was ready, Xie Yu came to Qin Yining. Qin Yining smiled and invited Xie Yu to sit at the square table in the central room. He personally poured a cup of tea for him. "Sir Xie, please enjoy." Xie Yu held the teacup with one hand and said with a smile, "Thank you, Princess." Sir Xie is too polite. Sir Xie has put in a lot of effort to find such a suitable residence so quickly. Sir Xie is already so old, but you still have to run around in the rain. I really feel very sorry. Xie Yu waved his hand. He could see that Qin Yining was sincerely grateful. Pouring a cup of tea and saying a few words from his heart was more comforting than giving him anything else. Xie Yu beamed with joy. Even if he was worried, he felt happy. "Princess, in fact, this old man is worried that the bandits of Heifeng have been arrested by the local guards and bailiffs. Will they confess that they stole stones from the stone factory? Could it be that they also mentioned those people with the surname Guan?" After some thought, Xie Yu continued, "Also, I've been thinking about how that Guan guy managed to get in touch with the Black Wind Stockade. Could it be that he was able to get over 100 bandits in the Black Wind Stockade to obey his orders with just money? Could it be that he was using a fake name? For example." Qin Yining lowered her eyes and thought for a moment. "Mr. Xie, you're right. I didn't think of that." He sighed in shame. "Everything went according to my plan. I was a bit too complacent." Xie Yu smiled kindly and looked at Qin Yining with a gaze that showed respect for his master and concern for the younger generation. "Princess is still young. It's already very rare for you to be able to reach this stage. Perhaps this old man is just thinking too much. Those soldiers might not be willing to interrogate them in detail after capturing them. They might not necessarily confess all of this." Qin Yining shook his head and said, "Sir Xie is very meticulous. It's very necessary for you to consider this point. Regardless of whether or not they confess Guan Dahu, if news of Guan Dahu pulling the banner of Qingtian Alliance spreads, I can't avoid being affected." Qin Yining was still the leader of Qingtian Alliance. He had once led Qingtian Alliance to help Jin Shong take back the imperial palace. If news of this spread, it would have a negative impact. But thinking about it carefully, this was a fact that she couldn't change. We can't act rashly on this matter. Otherwise, we'll be exposing ourselves. We can only wait and see. If someone spouts nonsense, we'll at least have room to refute. This old man also thinks the same. Xie Yu smiled and said, "Although it's a hidden danger, it's not fatal. Moreover, who would believe the words of a group of mountain bandits?" After hearing Sir Xie's words, "That's true. If someone really dares to bite me, I'll just cry out that I'm innocent." Xie Yu was amused by Qin Yining's tone. She nodded and said, "That's right. Princess, when the time comes, just cry out that you're innocent. It's not a small matter to be framed. Why would those soldiers go and exterminate the mountain bandits? If the mountain bandits frame Wang Yi and Princess, I'm afraid they won't have an easy time in the future." After hearing Xie Yu's analysis, Qin Yining felt much more at ease. He smiled and nodded as he spoke of another matter. "I'll have to trouble Sir Xie to help me disguise myself as I did last time." "Oh." Xie Yu raised her eyebrows and said, "Does Princess Consort plan to meet those people again?" "Yes. They can't count on the Heifeng stronghold anymore. Now that their willpower is weak, it's a good opportunity to take advantage of their weakness." Xie Yu smiled and nodded, "That's good too. Let's see what they're really up to. It'll be even better if we can find out the location of those stones." "Yes, that's what I was thinking." The two of them discussed for a while before Xie Yu took her leave. Qin Yining had a good night's sleep. The next day, He had Tang Xiu investigate the whereabouts of Guan Dahu and the others. The Jinghu Wei that Tang Xiu had arranged were all very clever. Everyone quietly investigated the places that these people had frequented recently. So they tried to visit you in prison? Qin Yining smiled in surprise. That's right. Tang Xiu said. The tall and strong one wanted to go, but the one with the hoarse voice stopped him. If you ask me, wouldn't they be walking right into a trap if they went to visit you in prison? Those bailiffs and guards are afraid that the Haifeng stronghold will not be able to catch all the fish that escaped the net. Qin Yining smiled and said, forget it. I think they're desperate and have nowhere else to go. Do they usually stay in the residence in the afternoon? Tang Xiu nodded. Tomorrow, bring a few people to the residence and follow me from afar. I'm going to meet that Li Dazhuang tomorrow. Qin Yining spoke with a hint of mockery when he said this name, which he had made up at the last minute. Tang Xiu smiled and said, don't worry. I'll go and find out where they are tomorrow. Then I'll have to trouble you. No trouble at all. This is your subordinate's duty. Tang Xiu smiled and cupped her hands in salute. The next afternoon, Tang Xiu confirmed that Guan Dahu and the others were at home. Qin Yining went to find Xie Yu to change her appearance. She used the same method as last time and changed into a man's outfit. Qin Yining looked around in the small mirror. She found that the positions of the maids that Xie Yu had pointed out for her were all correct. She couldn't help but marvel at Xie Yu's ability. Qin Yining still brought along Ziyuan and Han Xiao. He asked Ji Yun and Bing Tang to come down and look after the house. He also told Tang Xiu and the others not to come close. The coachman was Jinghu Wei in disguise. The group of people went to Guan Dahu's rented house. At this time, Guan Dahu's beard was already unshaven. His originally elegant beard was now messy. Liu Ban and the others were not in the mood to do anything. There were even blisters on the corners of their mouths. Liu Ban heard someone calling the door. The person who called the door was a female voice. He opened the door in annoyance. Guan Dahu and the others picked up the door latch defensively. Once they found out that the Imperial Army was here, they could immediately escape. Hey! Aren't you the one with the 4-channel number? Liu Ban pointed at Ziyuan. Ziyuan said, yes, our boss is here. She opened the umbrella and stepped aside. Only then did Liu Ban see the outside that was covered by the oil paper umbrella. She saw the woman from the 4-way number, who looked especially beautiful but dressed neither like a man nor a woman, standing not far away with a maid holding an umbrella. Behind them was a coachman. Liu Ban turned around and looked at Guan Dahu questioningly. Guan Dahu winked at the two brothers behind him and asked them to climb over the wall to see if there was an ambush outside. He then went out to greet them. So it's Boss Chiu. Why did you think of stepping on a lowly place today? Guan Dahu said sarcastically, it seems that you are very well informed. You actually found my house. Qin Yining pretended not to understand Guan Dahu's sarcasm and said with a smile, Brother Li really knows how to joke. We're partners after all, so I have to show some concern for you. Moreover, I haven't received any news these days, so I was very worried about the progress of your recruitment. So I came to see. Guan Dahu was rendered speechless by her words, but he knew what was the most important thing right now. They had no money and no manpower. When they were at their wits' end, this woman came. Could it be that the heavens were giving them a chance to succeed? Thinking of this, Guan Dahu smiled and stepped aside. He invited Qin Yining and the others into the house. It's rainy and cold. If you don't mind, please come to my house and sit for a while. Listening to Guan Dahu's pretentious elegance and his hoarse voice, it was easy to think of some gloomy things. Qin Yining couldn't help but rub the goosebumps on his arms. He entered the house with a smile on his face. Jinghu Wei, who was acting as the coachman, sat casually on the shaft of the carriage and tightened his straw raincoat and bamboo hat like an ordinary coachman. The house was very dirty and messy. There were still leftovers on the table. Qin Yining looked straight ahead and sat down with Guan Dahu. Guan Dahu turned around and asked someone to boil water. When he turned around, he saw that the brother who had just climbed over the wall to investigate had come back. He even nodded at him. Guan Dahu was sure that there was no ambush outside. He was relieved and could talk to Qin Yining without worry. Qin Yining asked with a smile, "How is it going? Have you found out when the Titan tribute team will pass by? Don't be too late. Wouldn't it be a waste of manpower?" "Yes, what Boss Chiu said makes sense. I will pay attention to this," Guan Dahu said perfunctorily. Qin Yining's beautiful eyes turned and said, "The Titan people are not good people. They have harmed many people in Daju. A few days ago, I had a long talk with Brother Li. Although I am a woman, I was also excited. I wanted to beat them up to vent my anger. So today, I have something to discuss with you." Guan Dahu asked in surprise, What is it?" "I want to arrange for someone to follow you to rob the Titan team." "What?" Guan Dahu was shocked. Liu Ban and the others were also shocked. They were worried about whether they would be exposed. They didn't expect this woman to make such an arrangement. "How can we do that? After all, this is a matter of life and death. We can use money to hire servants. It's better for the people around Boss Chiu to not get involved in this." Chapter 931. In the ears of Guan Dahu and the others, who were currently worrying about money, this kind of nouveau riche tone was filled with mixed feelings. In this world, there were always some people who were born into wealth, and some who were thrown into the mud. These were all fates, and they had no choice. Guan Dahu shook his head. His thoughts were lively, and he had already begun to analyze. Right now, they already had no other ideas. If they couldn't think of a way through the four-way account, then wouldn't that treasure be handed over to someone else? Just as this woman said, the four-way account had money and connections. As long as Boss Chiu wanted, what kind of people couldn't she hire? This woman was very daring, even daring to rob the Titan. If they told her that they were only going to move stones, would this woman let go? Guan Dahu already couldn't find any other path to take. If they didn't take the four-way account route, they could only watch as the treasure was left in the stone factory, waiting for someone to discover it one day, and it would be taken away by the emperor. They originally could have lived a carefree life, but who would have thought that it would all be ruined by this money that they couldn't even get their hands on? Qin Yining observed Guan Dahu's expression. Seeing that he seemed to have loosened up, he pretended not to know and raised his voice suspiciously, "Brother Li. Could it be that you're lying to me? You didn't plan on robbing the Titan tribute at all, right?" "No." Guan Dahu hurriedly shook his head, but there was some hesitation in his voice. Qin Yining stood up angrily and said, "Could it be that you really were lying to me? I thought you were a good man, and I trusted you so much, but you treat me like this." Guan Dahu saw this and hurriedly explained, "Boss Chiu, you listen to me. I didn't tell you the truth at the beginning because it was for the good of the four-way account." Liu Ban and the others were a bit confused when they heard Guan Dahu say this. They all anxiously looked at Guan Dahu's expression. However, Guan Dahu gave them a look that told them to calm down. Qin Yining's attitude was unyielding, for the sake of the four-way account. "Tell me, how did you do it for the sake of the four-way account?" Since Guan Dahu had made his decision, he didn't beat around the bush and sighed, "Since Boss Chiu wants to know, I won't hide it. Actually, we are all from the Green Sky Alliance." Qin Yining raised his eyebrows. He had expected that Guan Dahu would bring up the Green Sky Alliance, but seeing him speak with such a sincere and earnest attitude made Qin Yining feel a little amused. "What? You are?" Qin Yining pretended to be shocked. "Yes." Guan Dahu's mind spun quickly, and he sighed faintly. Pretending to be profound, he said, "Boss Chiu of Green Sky Alliance must have heard of it. When the Dian dynasty was rising, the Jianghu reported Man-er. Who wouldn't give face to the Qingtian Alliance? Do you know who the current leader of the Green Sky Alliance is?" Qin Yining looked as if she had been stunned. Guan Dahu said, "I'm not afraid to tell you, but the leader of the Qingtian Alliance is Prince Zhongshiren's wife." "Don't tell me you don't know the name of Prince Zhongshiren." Using her name to scare her, Guan Dahu was really pitiful. Qin Yining pretended to be calm. "Are you telling the truth? Are you really from the Green Sky Alliance?" Seeing that she finally showed her fear, Guan Dahu's heart calmed down. With his hands behind his back, he raised his chin and said, "Of course I'm serious." He turned around and continued earnestly, "I didn't tell you before because I was afraid you wouldn't be willing to dance with the people of the Jianghu. Secondly, I felt that you might be afraid of being implicated by the people of the Jianghu. That's why I kept quiet." His pretended profound tone, coupled with his unique hoarse voice, made Qin Yining feel a bit gloomy in the rainy and hazy weather. Qin Yining naturally wouldn't be afraid of him. He pondered for a moment and said, "I have indeed heard of the name of the Green Sky Alliance. I also know that Prince Zhongshiren is an indomitable hero, and that Prince Zhongshiren's consort is a heroine." Ziyuan and Smile, who were following behind Qin Yining, lowered their heads. They had a better understanding of their Wang Fei's ability to boast. Qin Yining continued without blushing or skipping a beat, especially Prince Zhongshiren's consort. It is said that she is the legitimate daughter of the Dayan Emperor, Pan An. Under her leadership, the Green Sky Alliance has done a lot of good things. They have done many things to help the victims of disasters. The Green Sky Alliance is also the most chivalrous organization in this dynasty. The Emperor recognizes their existence. That's right, that's right. Guan Dahu nodded repeatedly. That's why we are listening to the Alliance leader's orders this time. We are going to do a big thing. Oh, what big thing? Qin Yining looked very interested. It was as if the person who was shocked and afraid when she heard the name of the Green Sky Alliance was not her. Guan Dahu thought to himself that when this woman smelled the scent of benefits, she was like a bee that saw honey. Perhaps she really was someone who valued money more than her life. Thinking up to this point, Guan Dahu had already quickly polished a set of words in his heart. After making up his mind, he said, "The higher-ups have arranged for us to quietly transport a batch of things without alerting the authorities." "What things?" "Treasures." "Treasures?" Qin Yining's eyes lit up. "What treasures? Why would they order you to transport them?" Guan Dahu lowered his voice and pointed to the south. Back then, the old and fatuous emperor of the Dayan dynasty hid all the valuable things, the taxes he collected at that time, and some of his old secrets before he abdicated. Even the emperor has been searching for this treasure for many years. Now, we finally have some clues. Qin Yining was both surprised and frightened. "Really? It was your alliance leader who ordered you to secretly transport the treasure?" "Yes, that's right." Guan Dahu clapped his hands. "But hasn't the emperor been looking for this treasure all this time? The alliance leader is resourceful and found out about this before anyone else." Guan Dahu's voice was bleak as he said, "You also know that Prince Zhongshiren has been fighting for the country all these years. He has made many heroic contributions, and the common people hold him in high esteem." "Yes." Qin Yining nodded and sighed. "It's just that their family's situation isn't very good. It's said that their family is almost extinct." "Isn't that so?" When Guan Dahu heard this, he hurriedly followed up, "Wang Yi's contributions are too great," and he threatened the higher-ups. "There are many reasons for the extermination of his family. Now that the world has just stabilized, there are many people who don't have enough to eat or warm clothes. However, Your Majesty doesn't care about that and is wholeheartedly focused on building an imperial mausoleum for himself. We know where the treasures are, but Your Majesty doesn't. If he were to find out, he would definitely fill the imperial mausoleum with the wealth of the common people that Dayan's incapable ruler plundered. He wouldn't care if the common people had enough to eat or not. That's why the alliance leader ordered us to transport the treasures out. We can keep a portion of the money for the people to eat, and the rest is for the common people to eat. So that's how it is." Qin Yining's face was full of shock. "You know the location of the treasures, but you don't tell the emperor. Aren't you afraid that I'll tell on you behind your back by telling me this?" Guan Dahu thought to himself that even if you had the slightest intention of doing that, you wouldn't be able to walk out of this room today. However, on the surface, he said righteously, "Previously, when we said that we were going to rob the Tatan's tributes, Boss Chiu indignantly gave us 3,000 taels of silver. I knew then that although Boss Chiu is a woman, her breadth of mind is comparable to a man's. You have justice in your heart. Besides, we're doing this for the common people. Hiding it from the emperor isn't considered treason. I definitely dare to tell you this." Qin Yining nodded repeatedly. He couldn't help but have a whole new level of respect for Guan Dahu's glib tongue. This person had been honed quite a bit under Mrs. Liao in the past few years. Wasn't his ability to distort black and white and sell things on the spot buried? All right, since you're so straightforward, I won't hide it anymore. Qin Yining said, then are the heroes of the Haifeng stronghold also related to you? Guan Dahu nodded mysteriously. Qin Yining shook his head, as if he thought himself clever. So you made an agreement with the Haifeng stronghold to transport the treasures. Who would have thought that the Haifeng stronghold would suddenly be annihilated? That's right. Guan Dahu laughed inwardly. This woman really knows how to think. She even came up with a reason herself, so we didn't have to waste our time making it up. Qin Yining nodded and said, all right, since I know about this, I definitely have to intervene. As for transporting the treasures, I can invest some money. Your alliance master is such a righteous person. After obtaining the treasures, when you leave behind a portion of the spoils, I'm sure he won't treat you unfairly. When the time comes, just leave some for me so that I won't suffer a loss. Guan Dahu inwardly sighed in relief. Liu Ban and the others were already beaming with joy. All right. Guan Dahu said, I knew that Boss Chiu would definitely be a reasonable person since you're able to do such a big business. It seems like that's really the case. Qin Yining smiled and said, I have another presumptuous request. Boss Chiu, if there's anything you want to say, feel free to say it. Qin Yining lowered his voice and said, is your Qingtian alliance still accepting members? Guan Dahu raised his eyebrows. Boss Chiu, what do you mean? I won't hide it from you. I've admired your alliance master for a long time. If you can recruit me into your Qingtian alliance, the alliance will have one more helping hand. Secondly, I'll also be able to speak with the alliance master. It'll be a win-win situation for us. Guan Dahu immediately understood that this woman wanted to speak with the princess consort. Guan Dahu pretended to ponder, but he was already sneering in his heart. Right now, he was a traitor of the Qingtian alliance, but the person in front of him didn't know that. Why would he temporarily agree to coax her into helping him? After transporting the treasures, he wanted to give her a portion of the spoils and promise her some benefits. At that time, the rest would all belong to his brothers. After they transported the treasures away, where would this woman go to find them? Thinking of this, Guan Dahu laughed. So that's how it is. Since Boss Chiu has such intentions, then it couldn't be any better. The brothers who joined the Qingtian alliance all want to return justice to this world. Since you've already spoken, how can we reject you 1,000 miles away? From today onwards, you're also a member of our alliance. Qin Yining nodded excitedly and cupped his hands. Thank you, Brother Li. Guan Dahu waved his hands. You're welcome. Actually, I also want to apologize to Boss Chiu. I didn't tell you the truth before. My name isn't Li Dazhuang. Oh. My surname is Qiao, and my name is Shongfei. I'm the Hall Master of the Qingtian Alliance. Previously, I wanted to hide my identity, so I hope Boss Chiu can forgive me. Chapter 932. Qin Yining was shocked by Guan Dahu's shamelessness. In order to get close to him, he actually lied and claimed to be Qiao Shangfei. Qiao Shangfei was a Dian Grand Scholar and ranked 6th in the 2nd grade. He was extremely knowledgeable and had a scholarly aura. How could he not feel embarrassed to flatter himself? So it's Hall Master Qiao. I was rude earlier. Qin Yining quickly apologized with a smile. Guan Dahu waved his hand. We'll be brothers and sisters in the future. Why do you need to be so polite? Boss Chiu is also a heroine. I really admire you. Hall Master Qiao is too kind. I'm just carrying on the legacy of my ancestors. I don't want to be meritorious, but I don't want to make any mistakes. The two of them flattered each other as if they had just had a heart-to-heart talk. Liu Ban and the others saw how the other party was being coaxed by their big brother and couldn't help but admire them. In the end, Qin Yining asked intimately, Hall Master Qiao, where are the treasures you mentioned? How are we going to transport them? Guan Dahu pulled himself together and said mysteriously, to be honest, The treasures are in the stone factory that was used to build the imperial mausoleum. When they were transporting the treasures, they were afraid that they would leak the stuffing, so they emptied out the stones. I'm not sure about the details, but there are indeed some stones in the factory that are emptied out. They are filled with gold, silver, and jewels. Qin Yining stood up and said with shining eyes, "Then we're going to be rich." "What? Ah. Oh, I mean, won't the commoners be able to live a good life?" "Yes, that's right." Guan Dahu nodded and smiled. He didn't miss the greedy look in Qin Yining's eyes. Qin Yining rubbed his palms together and walked around in circles. This isn't easy. Those are the stones used to build the imperial mausoleum. They can only go in and not out. Moreover, there are so many stones. How can you be sure where the stones are? If we think of a way and can't find them, what if we move the wrong things out? I'm sure. Don't worry, as long as we have people, I know the general location. Guan Dahu was very confident. Qin Yining frowned suspiciously. Really? Hall Master Qiao, if you can't be sure, then my next plan won't be easy to carry out. At that time, the two of us will have to draw water with a bamboo basket. When Guan Dahu heard this, he hurriedly said, "There's no harm in telling you. Those things are in the northwest of the stone factory, near the center of the stone factory. Those that came in at that time were all piled up there." He finally got the answer. Qin Yining's heartbeat quickened, but he didn't show it on his face. He said thoughtfully, "Since we know its location, we have a way to get it out." Looking at the dark and messy room, Qin Yining came up with an idea. "Hall Master Qiao, brothers, if you don't mind, we have quite a few properties in the city, and the servants are all ready-made. Let's work together to think of a solution. Since Hall Master Qiao and the others can't live such a hard life, why don't you all come to my place and give me a chance to entertain you? What do you think? Didn't they even have a place to eat?" Liu Ban was overjoyed and looked at Guan Dahu expectantly. Guan Dahu also breathed a sigh of relief. They had been too complacent a few days ago, and all the money they earned had been used up on eating, drinking, gambling, and whoring. Now that the Haifeng stockade was in trouble, all their hopes were gone. Fortunately, the heavens helped them. In less than 2 days, this problem had been solved. Guan Dahu pretended to hesitate and said, "That's not good." "Hey, what's not good about it?" Qin Yining smiled warmly. "Since I'm already a member of the Qingtian Alliance, then we are brothers and sisters. Moreover, friends share the same principle, and we have the same goal. If Hall Master Qiao doesn't agree, then you're not giving me face." Guan Dahu thought for a moment, then sighed and said, "Well, since that's the case, I'll accept." Qin Yining nodded happily, then turned around and said, "Ziyuan, go and tell shopkeeper Yin to tidy up the houses on South Street and arrange for more servants. I want to invite 3 brothers to stay for a few days." Ziyuan nodded. "Okay." She quickly retreated, stood in the corridor with an umbrella, and thought for a while. Then, she went straight out. Not to mention how Tang Xiu was secretly helping Ziyuan and avoiding people to arrange a house. Qin Yining, on the other hand, smiled and chatted with Guan Dahu and the others for a while. When Ziyuan came back, the group of people went to South Street in the rain. This house was indeed owned by Sitong No. Qin Yining had learned from shopkeeper Yin that shopkeeper Yin knew that Qin Yining and Pang Xiao needed to find a house to stay in, so he made special arrangements. However, Qin Yining had already made preparations, so he declined. Now, it was the best place to arrange for the surveillance of the 6 people of the Qingtian Alliance. Qin Yining saw her off in person and told the maids and older female servants to do their best. Then she left the mansion. After Qin Yining left, Guan Dahu, Liu Ban, and the others gathered in the parlor and sent the maids out. Liu Ban stood next to the antique shelf and touched every bottle in the RU kill. Then, he stuck out his butt and looked at the coral tree on the lower floor. TSK, this Sitong number is really rich. Fortunately, that woman knows how to deal with things. Otherwise, we really want to rob her. Guan Dahu said in a deep voice, "We have to look at the long term. If we touch her now, how can we still carry out our big plan?" Liu Ban smiled, "I'm just saying. Big brother, don't worry, I won't do anything now." Guan Dahu was very satisfied with the current situation. He smiled and said, "That woman is quite capable. Maybe she has some connections. Let's let her do her work first. Let's wait for the news for the time being." "Got it. But I'm afraid that a knife will expose us." "What's there to be afraid of? We have the support of the Sitong number now. That Chiu woman wants to use us to find the treasure. Would she just watch us get caught?" "That's true." The brothers were in a good mood. Not long after, the food and wine were served. Guan Dahu and the others looked at each other and sat around the square table. They looked at the sumptuous dishes on the table and felt even more satisfied. At this time, Qin Yining had already washed off his disguise and changed into a set of casual clothes. He sat at the table and discussed the treasure with Xie Yu. "Now that we know the approximate location, it will be easier for us to take action. At least we have a direction," Xie Yu said with emotion. "Also, the Wang Fei has allowed them to stay. It will be easier for us to keep an eye on them and prevent them from causing trouble in a place we don't know about." Xie Yu had long been convinced of Qin Yining's abilities. The more time they spent together, the more emotional she felt. It was also thanks to Wang Yi's good luck that he was able to have this woman as his wife. With her around, it was even more effective than having a general by his side. "I plan to walk around these days and appear more attentive. We can't let them think that we already have a plan." Wang Fei is right. Wang Fei also has to be careful. We don't know how many people they have in total. Qin Yining nodded. "That's what I'm worried about too. I'm afraid that they are hiding something and have left people outside to provide support. That's why we have to be more careful when we walk around these days to see if there are any tails following us. Actually, even if we know the approximate location of the treasure, it's not much better than before. The stone factory only allows entry and not exit. It's harder than ascending to heaven to move things out. In addition, Wang Yi and Zhong Ibor will be taking over soon. Before they take over, the people in charge of the stone factory will definitely tighten the security so that they can hand over this hot potato to the higher-ups." Xie Yu sighed with emotion. "That's why the stone factory security is the tightest right now." "That's right." Qin Yining was also in a difficult position. This time, Your Majesty appointed Zhong Ibor as the magistrate of Huichuan County. This is also something that we didn't expect. If it were someone else, we would still be able to do something under Wang Yi's protection. However, Zhong Ibor isn't a stupid person. He must be watching us closely and waiting for us to make a mistake. It's harder than ascending to heaven to move things out from under his nose. When the two of them said this, they sighed speechlessly. For a moment, they looked at each other in dismay. No one could think of a suitable solution. This feeling of knowing where the treasure was but being unable to do anything was even more of a headache than not knowing the whereabouts of the treasure. In the next few days, whenever Qin Yining was free, he would disguise himself and go to the four-way shop to keep watch. She knew that Guan Dahu was a bold and meticulous person. Who knew when he would go to the four-way shop to check out the situation? If she wasn't there, it would arouse suspicion. Fortunately, Princess Consort is cautious. Today, he really came. Ji Yun and Bing Tang came out of the side room and craned their necks to look at the door. After making sure that Guan Dahu and the others had left, they sighed in relief. Bing Tang pouted. "As soon as he came, we had to hide. We were afraid that he would recognize us. It would make it seem like we did something bad. Because of that, we couldn't serve you." Qin Yining chuckled and tapped Bing Tang's forehead. "You lass, you're troubling your younger sister Ziyuan and younger sister Hanxiao. Are you feeling bad for them? She's obviously jealous." Ji Yun teased. Ziyuan and Hanxiao were also familiar with Qin Yining. At this moment, they also laughed. Just as the hall was filled with laughter, head shopkeeper Yin hurried over from the front. "Princess Consort, something seems to have happened in your residence." "What?" Qin Yining's smile froze. "What's wrong?" "Just now, our shop assistant passed by your residence and saw a lot of people gathered in front of your residence. It seemed that there was an argument. He knew that it was not good to publicize your identity, so he quickly ran back to report it." "What kind of people were they?" They said that they were all tall and strong. They seemed to know martial arts. Shopkeeper Yin wiped the sweat on his forehead. Should we report it to the authorities? Qin Yining shook his head. No need. I'll go back and take a look. Chapter 933. After more than a month of heavy rain, the roads in Huichuan County were muddy, and the speed of the carriages was greatly reduced. When the carriages arrived in front of the newly purchased residence, there were no outsiders in the residence, and only a messy scene was left. In front of the courtyard, many Huichuan County citizens craned their necks to look inside, and many people were discussing. I heard that this is Prince Zhongxian's residence. Why would someone come here to cause trouble? Prince Zhongxian is a great hero, and the imperial court should treat him well. How can they allow a rascal to behave atrociously in his residence? Qin Yining's carriage slowly approached, and the sound of the carriage wheels caused the citizens to turn around. Everyone held up their umbrellas or wore bamboo hats to open up a path for the carriage. Qin Yining thought for a moment and didn't immediately get off the carriage. Instead, she wiped her disguise with a wet handkerchief, took off her male robe, and put on a light lotus-colored brocade cloak that was prepared in the carriage. Bing Tang loosened her long hair, tied it into a loose bun, and secured it with a silver hairpin. Ji Yun took the spare embroidered shoes and wooden clogs to help Qin Yining change out of her male boots. After quickly tidying herself up, Ji Yun lifted the curtain and got off the carriage. She held up an umbrella and brought over a wooden stool for stepping on her feet. Qin Yining held onto Bing Tang's hand and lifted the curtain with one hand. She lowered her eyes and leaned out of the carriage. This was the first time the citizens of Huichuan County saw the appearance of Prince Zhongxian's consort at such a close distance, and there was a moment of silence. Qin Yining stepped on the wooden clogs, and her footsteps made a light crisp sound. She looked back and nodded slightly at the citizens who were watching at the entrance. Bing Tang and Ji Yun held up an umbrella on each side and helped Qin Yining into the courtyard. The residence was in a mess at this time. The ground was covered with broken porcelain, wooden benches, and other things. The potted plants under the eaves of the corridor were also overturned. The stems were broken, the leaves were trampled, and the potted soil was soaked by the rain. The courtyard that was not easy to tidy up became extremely dilapidated. Many maids, old women, and young manservants were covered in mud and water, and many of them were wounded. They supported each other and kept saying ouch. Qin Yining recognized a few Jinghu Wei among them, and they were all injured. Looking at the extent of their injuries, it was obvious that they had not come with good intentions. Qin Yining pursed his lips. He was even more certain that there was something fishy going on. Since the other party was able to injure Jinghu Wei to this extent, they must have made preparations beforehand. When he arrived at the main hall, he saw Xie Yu rolling up her arm and letting the manservant apply medicinal wine on it. Mr. Xie is injured. When Xie Yu saw that Qin Yining had returned, she hurriedly pulled down her sleeves. Princess Consort is back. These are just minor injuries. They won't get in the way. Xie Yu invited Qin Yining to take a seat with a serious look on her face. Qin Yining and Xie Yu modestly sat down and asked with a frown, Mr. Xie, what's going on today? Who came to our fu to cause trouble? In response to Princess Consort, you recognize the people who came today. I recognize them. Yes. When those people barged in earlier, I did not detect anything amiss. I explained that this is Wang Yi's newly purchased fu, but the other party kept pestering us endlessly. They even said that they were from the Lu family. Only then did I know that they were sent by Madame Zhong Yibor. It really was her. Xie Yu's words confirmed Qin Yining's guess. She brought people here to cause trouble today? Did she show up? Or did she order someone else to come? Madame Zhong Yibor did not show up. From the looks of it, the people who came should not be Zhong Yibor's subordinates. They should be from Madame Zhong Yibor's maternal family because the Jianghu people they brought with them called that person Master Bian. He brought more than 20 Jianghu people with him and all of them are highly skilled in martial arts. The few Jinghu Wei we left behind are also not weak. However, they were outnumbered and had to take care of the safety of the family's servants, so they suffered losses. Why did these people barge in so rashly? Qin Yining's brows were tightly knitted and his lips were tightly pursed. He was already forcefully suppressing his anger. Xie Yu sighed and said, Madame Yibo came to Huichuan County first to find a suitable fu for Zhong Yibo. She said that she had taken a fancy to this fu. I explained to them several times that this fu was bought by Wang Yi and that Wang Yi would soon come to Huichuan County to take up his position. However, they did not listen. Not only did they beat up our family's people, but they also smashed everything that could be smashed. Xie Yu's tone was very heavy. It was obvious that he was on the verge of exploding in anger. He had followed Pang Xiao for so many years and had seen many people and many things. However, he had never seen such a domineering woman who bullied others in their own home. I believe that Madame Zhong Yibo's actions must have been incited by Zhong Yibo. This also shows that Wang Yi is in a difficult situation in the court. Even a small Madame Bien dares to ride on our neck and shit. It's true that kind people are bullied and kind horses are ridden. Qin Yining pursed his lips and said, Madame Bien can't quibble that she didn't know this was the fu. She was able to gather so many martial arts masters. It's obvious that she deliberately came here to cause trouble. Zhong Yibo must have secretly incited her to do this. Otherwise, Madame Zhong Yibo would not have been arranged to come to Huichuan County first since she was a newlywed. Wang Yi's letter did not mention that Lu Heng had also set off. Perhaps, Madame Zhong Yibo came here to do things for Zhong Yibo. In the past, Qin Yining still had some friendship with Lu Heng. After all, they had gone through life and death together. Later, because of Lu Heng's intentions, Qin Yining began to distance himself from him. Now, not only did he have different political views from Pang Xiao, but he even used such despicable means. Qin Yining's remaining friendship with Lu Heng was about to be completely wiped out. Xie Yu sighed and turned to look at the people who had gathered outside the gate. He said, Wang Fei, I'm afraid this old man will lead people to persuade the people outside to disperse. Qin Yining nodded. Okay, thank you, Sir Xie. Xie Yu stood up and walked down the stairs with trembling steps while holding his waist. After all, he was old. Today, his arm was injured and he fell down. Now, he felt pain in his leg after walking a few steps. Jinghu Wei, who often interacted with Xie Yu in the military, was already unable to restrain his anger. Tang Xiu and the others angrily followed behind Xie Yu, ignoring the fact that they were soaked through by the rain. It was as if this was the only way to extinguish the anger in their hearts. In the heavy rain, an old man walked shakily at the front. The servant girls and grannies in the yard were still cleaning up the mess in the yard in the rain. Everyone was covered in dirt, their hair and faces covered in rain and dirt. They looked especially miserable. The people who were watching in front of the gate couldn't help but shake their heads and sigh. Xie Yu came to the gate and raised his hands in a bow. Everyone, fellow villagers, this old man is the steward of the Wang Fu. Everyone, look, our Fu has been attacked by bandits. The rain is so heavy. Other than women and children, there are also injured people in the Fu. It is not good to entertain everyone. Dear fellow villagers, please go back. Also, if you get caught in the rain and the cold wind, you won't catch a cold. Xie Yu was old but his eyes were filled with kindness. His words were helpless and pitiful, without any of the arrogance of the steward of the Wang Fu. The people had been watching for so long and had a good impression of the people of the Wang Fu. They knew that even the servants of the Prince Zhongxian's family were very reasonable. Also, something had happened to their family today. It was not good for them to block the gate and watch. This old man is right. Everyone, disperse. Don't block the entrance of the Wang Fu. That's right, the old man should take care of himself. The commoners sighed and dispersed. Even though they had all left. However, the news of such an incident in front of the prince's mansion spread quickly. Tang Xiu and Jinghu Wei had already picked up their weapons and lined up in front of the main house. Princess Consort, the Lu family is too much. As long as Princess Consort says the word, we will immediately go and raid their house. That's right, Princess Consort. How dare this group of people be so impudent when we are not in the Fu? This group of people have no regard for the law. They don't even care about Wang Yi. Wang Yi, please give the order. As long as you say it, I will seek justice even if I have to risk my life. They were all hot-blooded men from the army. Their lord, whom they had always worshipped as a god, had already been treated harshly by the emperor in the capital. It was as if he was about to be trampled on in the mud. Who would have thought that in this small Huichuan county, even a county magistrate who had yet to take office dared to act like this? How could they endure it? Qin Yining walked to the door and pushed away Ji Yun's hand that was holding an umbrella for him. He let the rain fall on his face. She was also angry. The Lu family was too much. But after calming down, she had to be careful. These people in front of her were Pang Xiao's confidants. They were Jinghu Wei who were loyal to Pang Xiao. They were all fresh lives. Any decision she made would affect their lives. She could not let them take the risk. Thinking of this, Qin Yining raised his hand and said, I have my own plans. We cannot act rashly. Go bathe and change your clothes first. Eat some ginger soup to warm your bodies. Don't catch a cold. When I think of a countermeasure, I will have to trouble you. Wang Fei, everyone, please listen to my arrangements. Seeing Qin Yining's insistence, Tang Xiu turned around and arranged for everyone to do as she said. Everyone's heart was filled with anger, but they had nowhere to vent it. At the same time, in a large residence next to the Yamen in Huichuan County, Bian Ruohan was reclining on the chaise lounge and had his nails dyed by a maidservant. When he heard footsteps outside, he immediately sat up. How is it? The person who came was Bian Tong. He was Bian Ruohan's distant relative from the same clan. He was almost 40 years old. He was tall and had strong facial features. Looking at his majestic gait, one could tell that this person was a martial artist. In terms of clan wheel, Bian Ruohan had to call him uncle. However, Bian Ruohan's family had already declined. Bian Ruohan had married into a good family. She maintained her status and did not address him as a relative. She only called him by his name. Bian Tong did not argue with Bian Ruohan. Instead, he was extremely flattering. Chapter 934. Oh, is that so? Bian Ruohan sat up and pushed away the servant girl's hand. She said excitedly, that poisonous whore was also here. Did you teach her a good lesson? Bian Tong said regretfully, Madam, Prince Zhengxian's consort is not in the Fu. I don't know what she went out to do. There was only an old steward and a room full of servants left in the Fu. Don't worry, they were all taught a good lesson. Bian Ruohan was very disappointed. What's so interesting about that? We only taught the servants a lesson. It doesn't count as venting our anger. Bian Tong's eyes turned and he said with a smile, Madam, think about it carefully. Actually, we took people to smash their home and beat their servants. That was enough to vent our anger. What kind of person is Prince Zhengxian? He is the only prince with a different surname in the current dynasty, and he is also a valiant general who has fought in the north and south. Even your majesty has to be careful when dealing with him. You arranged for people to smash his newly purchased residence into pieces and teach the servants a lesson. If this isn't slapping his face, then what is? Think about it carefully. If Prince Zhengxian has no face, what face does Wang Fei have? Bian Ruohan nodded as she listened. She couldn't help but feel refreshed. No matter how great a hero he is, now that he has lost the emperor's heart, he has to behave himself. Bian Ruohan stood. When she thought of Qin Yining's face that she loathed, and then thought of how their residence had been smashed by her people, she couldn't stop smiling. Can't she show off how virtuous she is? They are all people that your majesty ordered to accompany my husband on his ascent. I haven't even left yet, and she's already showing off her ability. I want to see if the residence she bought before I did is habitable. Bian Ruohan had hated Qin Yining since the day of their marriage when Lu Heng abandoned her to go find the Qin clan. He came back dead drunk and refused to consummate the marriage with her. Later on, she went to the palace to find her sister, the Empress, and the Empress Dowager to seek justice for herself. Bian Ruohan had long hated Qin Yining. Now that she could avenge herself a little, she felt very refreshed. Go prepare brush and ink. Write a letter and send it to their residence. Bien Tong paused. Madam, you plan to write a letter to Prince Zhongshuan's residence? Yes. I'll do the talking. Just write according to what I say. Bien Ruohan thought for a moment, then said, Tell Prince Zhongshuan's consort that as a member of Wang Yi's family, she came first in order to take the lead for Wang Yi. They bought a residence, but they didn't say it was a residence. Who knows what kind of place it is? Their family clearly has ulterior motives. In order to frame my marquis, they deliberately kept quiet and let our people fall into their trap. That's why we got into a conflict with them. They can then go and complain. I won't admit it even if they say it to the heavens. Besides, this matter can't be blamed on me. My people only went to discuss the matter of purchasing property in a good mood today, but the servants in their residence spoke ill of them and ordered them around arrogantly. My people were so angry that they beat them up. They asked for it. But seeing that Wang Yi and the Earl are both court officials, I won't pursue this matter. Tell Prince Zhongshuan's consort to discipline her servants. If she has time, she should take care of the matters in the residence. She shouldn't go out and make a fool of herself. She'll embarrass us, the noble ladies of the capital. Bien Tong held the weasel hairbrush and listened to Bien Ruohan say so much. For a moment, he hesitated, not knowing how to write. He originally thought that Bien Ruohan was going to give a sweet date after giving a slap. After offending the Prince Zhongshuan's residence, he would quickly apologize so that the matter wouldn't become more and more outrageous. Who knew that this person would go and provoke them? Madam, I'm afraid this isn't appropriate. If we really start a fight, I'm afraid. What's there to be afraid of? Bien Ruohan sneered, we have so many martial arts experts by our side. It's not like I didn't reward them. Do you think I'm afraid they can't deal with the servants in the Prince Zhongshuan's residence? Besides, Prince Zhongshuan is the same as the Earl. They're still in the capital and haven't set off yet. The men from both families aren't involved in this matter. It's just a one-on-one contest between me and that vicious slut from the Qin clan. Why should I be afraid of her? Just write according to what I say. Bien Tong had no choice but to write a letter according to Bien Ruohan's instructions. After Bien Ruohan read it, he was very satisfied and immediately ordered someone to send it to the Prince Zhongshuan's residence. Do you think that Qin guy will fly into a rage after reading this letter? He definitely will. Bien Tongshin sighed inwardly. No matter who it was, when he was not at home, their home was smashed, their servants were beaten, and the other did not have any intention of apologizing and sent a provocative letter. Even a person made of mud had a temper, much less that loyal Qin Wang Fei who came from a prestigious family. Bien Ruohan sneered, it's best if he flies into a rage. If he has even the slightest bit of temper, it'll be best if he brings people to kill us. Bien Ruohan abruptly turned to look at Bien Tong and ordered in a deep voice, after sending the letter, go to the Yamen and tell the bailiffs and soapmen to get ready. Tell them that I've heard that someone is coming to my residence to cause trouble and destroy the residence of the future county magistrate. I've asked them to help me look after it. Bien Tong was shocked. He finally understood that Bien Ruohan was setting a trap for the Prince Zhongshuan's consort. Once the letter was sent, the Prince Zhongshuan's consort would definitely be furious. She might immediately bring people to redeem herself in a flustered and exasperated manner. At that time, the bailiffs would suppress them and accuse them of deliberately causing trouble. Bien Tong hesitated. Madam, should we ask the Duke about this matter? After all, this was a matter between the two families. If the bailiffs were alerted, they wouldn't know about the matters between women. Bien Ruohan glared at him. Why are you being so wishy-washy? If you're afraid, then don't go. I have many people at my side that I can use. What nonsense. Bien Tong didn't seem to be angry at all. He even smiled wholeheartedly. I'm just giving a suggestion. The person in charge is still Madam. Since Madam has said so, I'll do it immediately. That's more like it. Bien Ruohan nodded in satisfaction. He sat down and continued to let the servant girl dye his nails. Bien Tong left the room with a meaningful smile on his face. He turned and ordered a servant to deliver the letter to the prince's residence. Qin Yining and Xie Yu were in the reception pavilion discussing how to deal with the matter in the future. When Xie Yu heard that Bian Ruohan had sent the letter, she smiled and said, "Could it be that he's here to apologize and want to turn a big problem into a small one?" Qin Yining shook his head. That might not be the case. Qin Yining opened the letter and carefully read it. He snorted coldly and threw the letter on the table. What a Bian She. She's actually such a shameless person. I've learned something new today. Ji Yun and Bing Tang were standing beside Qin Yining. When they glanced at the letter, they immediately flew into a rage. Xie Yu took the letter and her expression darkened after reading it. Princess Consort, that Bian She is simply too much of a bully. That's right, Princess Consort. Do you want this servant to teach her a lesson? Ji Yun exposed her arms and rolled up her sleeves. Bing Tang sneered, we've repeatedly tolerated her, but she's becoming more and more arrogant. Princess Consort, we shouldn't be polite to this kind of person. If we really don't do anything, I'm afraid people will think that we're afraid of the Lu family. Xie Yu added, although Wang Yi has been suppressed by your majesty to this extent, and the Lu family is indeed a century-old distinguished family in BG with a deep and unfathomable foundation, they've been provoking us time and time again. If we don't do anything, I'm afraid Wang Yi's reputation will really be tarnished. Qin Yining nodded slightly. Sir Xie is right. Ji Yun was excited when she heard this. Princess Consort, do you want this servant to ask Imperial Bodyguard Tang and the others to bring people over now? Qin Yining's finger tapped on the letter. He lowered his eyes for a moment and shook his head, saying, no need. Bing Tang was disappointed, but Princess Consort, who said that we have to bring people over to fight? In my opinion, this is a method that we'll only use if we have no other choice. Ji Yun and Bing Tang exchanged glances. Xie Yu asked curiously, Princess Consort, what do you plan to do? Qin Yining leaned close to Xie Yu and whispered a few words in her ear. Xie Yu burst out laughing when she heard this. What are you laughing at, Sir Xie? It's nothing. This old man thinks that Princess Consort's method is very good. This old man is just pitying that Madame Bien. How stupid would she be to deliberately make things difficult for you? That's right. Princess Consort's method is still the best. Bing Tang and Ji Yun were also very excited. Qin Yining smiled and waved his hand, allowing Xie Yu to arrange this matter. After Xie Yu left, she folded the letter with a cold expression and stuffed it into the envelope. Princess Consort, why are you still keeping this thing? You should tear it up and stuff it into that stupid woman's mouth. Qin Yining smiled and shook his head. I'm keeping it for Wang Yi to see. He raised his eyebrows and looked at Bing Tang and Ji Yun. I was bullied. Don't tell me that I'm not allowed to complain. Bing Tang and Ji Yun giggled when they heard this. Shoo, just go ahead and complain. If Wang Yi knows that you've suffered such a big grievance, the Lu family will definitely be in big trouble. Qin Yining smiled and nodded. She didn't care. No matter how much trouble Bian Ruohan caused, he was just a clown in her eyes. Fighting with her was just a way to make up for it. But just as Xie Yu said, she cared about the Wang family's reputation. Pang Xiao was a new noble, but Lu Heng had the support of a century-old family. He had contacted many old officials from Biji to form an alliance. In terms of foundation, Pang Xiao was not as good as Lu Heng. Because of this, they couldn't let the Lu family step on them. Pang Xiao hadn't arrived yet. She only treated it as a battle between women. She wanted to teach Bian Ruohan a lesson first. Percent at the Lu residence. Bian Ruohan excitedly ordered his martial arts experts to be on guard. The Yarman's bailiffs were also ready to arrest the culprits. But who knew that when the sun set and the key was locked, the bailiffs had already left impatiently. Qin Yining still hadn't arrived with his men. Bian Ruohan was in an extremely good mood. He apologized to the bailiffs and gave them a big bonus. He also gave all sorts of rewards to his martial arts experts. After closing the door, Bian Ruohan laughed heartily without caring about his image. What Wang Fei? What Di daughter of the family Qin? What Pan An's successor? It's all bullshit. She's just a coward who doesn't even dare to stand up when others step on her. A coward. The Duke was really blind. Why did he take a fancy to such a flashy but impractical person? Could it be that you only care about her face? Bien Ruahan dared to say this, but his men didn't dare to reply. Chapter 935. What are you afraid of? Bien Ruahan glared and sneered. She's a coward, but am I the same? Right now, she's shrinking her neck and refusing to speak up. This is the perfect opportunity for me to take revenge. If I don't use this opportunity to teach her a lesson, won't she think I'll let her go? Madam, you should carefully think about what Master and Madam said when you left, and think about Niang Niang's advice. Furthermore, it wasn't easy for you and Master Bo to reconcile. You should be in a loving relationship. You clearly know that Master Bo has some thoughts about the Qin clan, so why bother to provoke him? If it were up to me, we should stop while we're ahead. In any case, you've already vented your anger, haven't you? Bien Ruahan looked coldly at the wet nurse. After a while, she said, since you're my wet nurse, I grew up drinking your milk, and you're also loyal to me, I won't pursue the matter this time. Bien Ruahan sat with her back to the embroidered stool and fiercely slammed the table. What? You think you can bully me? Can't I let them suffer in return? The wet nurse saw that Bien Ruahan didn't understand her efforts and was so angry, so she immediately stopped trying to persuade her. She submissively bent her knees and replied, this servant has spoken too much. I won't speak nonsense again and make Madam angry. Only then did Bien Ruahan feel a little better. She coldly replied with a whom and dismissed the wet nurse. After the wet nurse left, she was still sulking for a long time. Originally, she had vented her anger today and was very happy. Who would have thought that someone who didn't know what was good for her would suddenly appear? What a disappointment. Bien Ruahan washed up and went to sleep. Regardless of what the wet nurse and servant girls said behind her back, the next morning, Bien Ruahan was woken up by the panicked cries of the servants. Madam, madam, quickly get up. Something bad has happened. What's going on? Why are you wailing like ghosts and howling like wolves? Bien Ruahan was woken up by the noise and was full of impatience. He hugged the quilt and sat up, glaring at the maidservant with displeasure, as if he would punish her severely if she didn't tell him the reason. The maidservant said anxiously, there are dozens of commoners gathered outside our mansion. They are blocking the door and scolding us. Scold us? Bien Ruahan said coldly. What do those poor bastards want to do? Rebel? Didn't you say that this is the residence of the Liu family, the future county magistrate of Huichuan County? I did. However, they still didn't show any signs of backing down. When they heard that it was our house, they made even more noise. What exactly are they arguing about? Bien Ruahan lifted the blanket and got off the bed, opening his arms to let the maidservant help him change his clothes. The two servant girls deftly helped her dress and comb her hair, but they didn't dare to repeat the words of the people outside. They only said, you'll know when you see it later. Bien Ruahan tidied her hair in front of the mirror and sneered, of course I'll go and see. I'd like to see if the commoners of Huichuan County aren't afraid of the officials. Bien Ruahan didn't have time to eat breakfast. He walked along the corridor with the maidservant holding an umbrella and went outside. When he arrived at the outer courtyard, the closer he got to the gate, the louder the noise of the commoners became. The gatekeepers and servants put down the bolts of the gate in groups of 3 to 5 people. A few people carefully piled up in a group and looked out through the gap of the gate, as if they were afraid that someone would directly break in. Bien Ruahan stood in front of the gate and only heard the people outside shouting, what county magistrate's mansion? Maybe it's a corrupt official. He hasn't even taken office yet, but is already bullying others. He even dared to smash and rob the prince's mansion. Do they still have any tolerance for us commoners? That's right. Even a great hero like Prince Zhongshiren was bullied by them. Do you think we'll have a good life in the future? Have you heard of Prince Zhongshiren's heroic deeds? I've heard. Such a great hero was suppressed to this extent, and now he's being bullied by County Magistrate Liu? You don't know. County Magistrate Liu hasn't arrived yet. This time, The one who brought people to the prince's mansion to cause trouble was County Magistrate Lu's wife. County Magistrate Lu has a noble title, so Mrs. Lu thought she was a countess and ran over to bully others. Sigh. There's actually such a shrew in this world. This couple isn't anything good. Prince Zhongxian hasn't even taken office yet, and they're bullying the princess consort. Shrew, they're worse than my wife. Bien Ruohan was so angry that his face turned purple. He clenched his fists. I'm so angry. Who are those people outside? How dare they block our door and gossip? Get them out of my way. Bien Tong's clothes were half wet. He had been standing at the door for a long time. Seeing Bien Ruohan so angry, he hurriedly tried to persuade her, Madam, this really isn't a good time to stand out. Let's just close the door. It's raining heavily, and they'll leave after making a ruckus for a while. No. Bien Ruohan was furious. I'm the young miss of the Bien family, Zhongibor's official wife. My sister is your majesty's concubine, and I'm also a relative of the imperial family. Now that I'm being scolded by a bunch of poor people at the door, how will I have any face left if word gets out? All of you, get out and chase them away. She turned around and angrily pointed at the group of martial arts experts who were hired with a lot of money. What are you waiting for? Don't tell me you want to go against this madam's wishes. The dozen or so men didn't immediately follow Bien Ruohan's orders. Instead, they looked at Bien Tong inquiringly. It was true that they took this job for the money, but they weren't brainless idiots. There were so many commoners gathered outside. Not to mention how many they could crush with a flick of their fingers. If they really got into a fight and someone died, wouldn't this master push them out to take the blame? At that time, the Bo family would push the blame to others, and the ones who did the wrong thing would be them, who were paid to do the job. In their hearts, they naturally didn't trust a woman who ordered them around. Compared to Bien Ruohan, Bien Tong, who had always been courteous to them, was much more trustworthy. Bien Tong saw the crowd's reaction and understood their intentions. He smiled and persuaded Bien Ruohan, Madam, please calm down. Those people outside are all bumpkins who haven't seen much of the world. If Madam gets angry with them, wouldn't you be lowering your own status? In any case, all we have to do is close the door, and they won't be able to barge in. Good, you're so powerful now that you won't even listen to my orders. If you're like this, then don't follow me around in the future. There's naturally room for you elsewhere, but I'm afraid that I can't accommodate a big Buddha like you here. When he heard that Bien Ruohan had the intention to chase him away, Bien Tong's expression changed. He was about to speak when Bien Ruohan quickly stepped forward and pulled open the door's latch with both hands. I'm going to die. What are you doing blocking my door so early in the morning? Be careful, this madam will find a bailiff to arrest all of you. In front of the manor, the commoners didn't expect to see a beautiful young woman so domineering as soon as the door opened. She kept talking about arresting people. Someone in the crowd sneered, You're so powerful, woman. You don't even know what rules are. You can't even compare to my family. That's right. One look and you can tell that this woman is sharp and unkind. I heard that she was the one who brought people to Prince Zhongxian's manor to cause trouble and stole all of his valuables. Bah. She's a noble woman. She's worse than a bandit. The commoners' emotions had long been stirred up. Their hearts were filled with righteous indignation at the fact that Prince Zhongxian had been bullied. In addition, Bien Ruohan had stepped forward and demonstrated what it meant to be sharp-tongued. Such a mean woman actually stood in front of the door with her hands on her hips and quarreled with so many people. It was simply unbearable. Originally, Prince Zhongxian was angry that the great hero had been bullied. Now, his disdain for Bien Ruohan increased by quite a bit. Tang Xiu and a few others were mixed in the crowd. They pointed at Bien Ruohan and scolded her. They scolded her with whatever vulgar words she could and finally vented their anger. Bien Ruohan had been pampered and spoiled since she was young. She had never lost in a quarrel with others. She believed that she had seen a lot of things. However, to be pointed at and scolded by so many strangers in front of her and even scolded her with vulgar words, she had never imagined that such a situation would happen to her. Bien Ruohan was already unable to restrain her anger. She flew into a rage and said, Men, Arrest these poor bastard. Lock them up in the yamen. I want to chop off their heads. When Bien Tong saw that Bien Ruahan had begun to spout nonsense, he hurriedly stepped forward to persuade her. Unexpectedly, before he could open his mouth, someone among the commoners at the door shouted loudly, "This vicious shrew, you're still saying that you're not abusing your power? Your man hasn't even taken office yet and you dare to order people to chop off our head? Who do you think you are? That's right, this shameless shrew. She stole Wang Yi's family's property and now she wants to treat people's lives like grass. I wonder if they have any connections to the Haifeng stronghold. I wonder how much wealth they have hidden away in their house." Someone in the crowd spoke like this. It was unknown who started to push forward. There were even people who shouted loudly, "This kind of rich and heartless local moneybags robbed us of everything in their house. They should return it to us. That's right. Return it to us." The 50 to 60 commoners at the door all began to shout. Such a domineering shrew must be the wife of a bandit leader. With someone taking the lead, there would be others who would follow suit out of greed. With Tang Xiu and the others adding fuel to the fire, these commoners who had been arguing with Bien Ruahan for a long time finally couldn't endure it any longer. They surged forward like a tide and tried their best to rush through the door. When Bien Ruahan saw the first person rushing through the door, she cursed loudly and reached out to stop them. Unexpectedly, she wasn't able to stop them. Instead, she was knocked back several steps. Fortunately, the maidservants reacted quickly and supported her. Otherwise, wouldn't she have been trampled into a pile of mud? Even so, Bien Ruahan and the maidservants, as well as Bien Tong and the others, were pushed back by the surging crowd. Otherwise, they would have been trampled underfoot. Fellow villagers, snatch it. This rich and heartless shrew's house was robbed by her. We can't let them get away with it. Someone roared loudly. Immediately, many people echoed. The commoners were used to being poor. When they suddenly entered the house that Bien Ruahan had meticulously decorated to welcome Lu Heng, how could they not be envious? Everything they saw was new and fresh. Everything they saw was green with envy. The decorations, antiques, calligraphy, and paintings were all shining silver in their eyes. Chapter 936. The group of Jianghu people hired by Bien Tong were dumbfounded. How could they expect these commoners to break into someone else's house? Once people saw benefits, they could no longer be peaceful. The idea of hating the rich had existed since ancient times. Moreover, these people had already broken in today. If they could take away something here, it would be enough for their family to eat for a year and a half. When the commoners saw real money, they naturally did not care about anything else. The force of the crowd made the Jianghu people shrink back. They were also hired, and they were only paid to solve the problem. At this time, the main family was already in a panic. There was no need for them to do anything for the main family. Under the deliberate instigation, dozens of commoners rushed in crazily to rob, shouting that they wanted to uphold justice for Prince Zhongshuren. Once the people rushed into the different rooms, it became harder to catch them. The women in the house screamed and the servants ran away. Bien Ruahan stomped her feet in anger and shouted furiously, "Stop! Stop! Put them down! Those are my things! Put them down!" Bien Ruahan lifted her skirt and was about to rush forward, but she was stopped by Bien Tong. "Madam, if you rush forward now, I'm afraid you'll be in danger. You'd better stay calm." "Bah! How can I stay calm? Those are all bought with my own money." Bien Ruahan seemed to have lost her heart. She took the initiative to come to Huichuan County first because she did not want to lose to Qin Yining. If Qin Yining could do it, why couldn't she, Bien Ruahan, do it? However, when she went out, no matter if it was her in-laws or her maiden family, they did not approve of her going out. She carefully fawned over them for a long time before she finally got the chance to go out. Moreover, she vowed that she would do everything well in Huichuan County, and she would not need a single cent from Lu Heng and her family. All the money she saved over the years, in order to please Lu Heng, she used it all on this house. Now that the mob had rushed in to rob, how could she let it go? Quick, go and find someone. Go and inform the Yamen. Bien Ruahan finally remembered that at this time, she could find someone to help her. When the commoners nearby heard that Bien Ruahan was going to tell the Yamen, they wanted to stop while they were ahead. It was better to rob something than to be caught by the Yamen. Therefore, the leader shouted, "That woman is going to tell the Yamen. Let's go." The commoners inside immediately grabbed their things and ran out. There were also a few hot-headed youths with bulging bags in their arms and vases of calligraphy and paintings. When they heard that the government was coming, they didn't want to leave at all. They shouted, "We are upholding justice. That shrew can bully Prince Zhongshan's family, why can't we avenge Princess? Even if the Yamens. Tang Ruahan, Tang of the people in the crowd, of the peoples of course, of why. However, before they could walk out, more commoners rushed in from the outside. They had heard the news and ran over without even putting on their raincoats. The people inside were squeezing out, while the people outside were rushing in. The scene was chaotic, as if there was a battle going on. Bien Ruahan and the others were pushed to hide behind a water jar in the corner. At this time, a loud shout came from outside, "Everyone quiet. The princess consort is here." Tang Ruahan and the others in the crowd were delighted. They quickly echoed, "The princess consort is here. Everyone, don't make a fuss. Let's see what the princess consort has to say." They were the ones who had instigated the citizens in the beginning. Although they were unfamiliar faces, they still had some authority in their words. Gradually, the citizens stopped talking. Qin Yining was wearing a lotus-colored robe. Her long hair was neatly tied into a bun and secured with a simple jade hairpin, revealing her slender and beautiful neck. The continuous heavy rain made the weather extremely cold and damp. Qin Yining still had a white cloud shawl draped over her shoulders. 2 oil paper umbrellas were opened for her, one on the left and one on the right. When she walked over slowly, the wooden clogs on her feet made a crisp tap sound on the wet ground. Some of the commoners had seen Qin Yining at the Wang Fu yesterday, while others were seeing her for the first time. But when they saw her, the noisy courtyard immediately quieted down. Princess consort. At this time, the head constable rushed over with the bailiffs. When he saw Qin Yining, he stopped in his tracks and bowed. Qin Yining nodded to return the greeting. The commoners in the courtyard immediately exploded. "The bailiffs are here. We can't leave. What are you afraid of? We're upholding justice. But he won't let us go." Qin Yining turned around to look at the commotion in the courtyard. Then she smiled and said to the head constable, "May I ask for the head constable's surname?" I don't dare. This one's surname is Guo." Constable Guo cupped his hands and bowed. Qin Yining smiled and said in a low voice, "Constable Guo, today's matter is because of the grudge between the Wang Fu and the Lu family. Constable Guo must be involved in this matter, so you're in a difficult position. Who you arrest, who you don't arrest, what your superiors say in the future, what your superiors say. Constable Guo has been in the government for many years, so you should know better than a housewife like me." When Qin Yining said this, Constable Guo immediately broke out in a cold sweat. Princess Consort's words are reasonable. This one is currently worried about this matter. Not only this, but there are also so many commoners. This matter is truly difficult to handle. The law can't punish the majority. Could they arrest all the commoners present today? It would be good if there were orders from their superiors, but they were like a group of dragons without a leader. The most powerful person in the county Yamen was the county magistrate. Now that he heard that something had happened, the county magistrate would shrink his neck and disappear. If this matter was not handled well, wouldn't he be dragged out to take the blame in the future? Qin Yining smiled and said, "I have something to say, and I hope Constable Guo can listen to me. Princess Consort, please speak. Today, I brought the Wang Fu's guards here, so the commoners shouldn't make a big deal out of this matter. I think that since this matter was caused by the relationship between the Wang Fu and the Lu family, it wouldn't be good to delay Constable Guo's work. Why don't you let us settle this matter privately? What do you think?" Constable Guo almost jumped up in joy. What a kind-hearted bodhisattva. At this critical moment, Someone actually stood up and took the trouble for him. If the Wang Fu was willing to settle this privately with the Lu family, and not the Jingdong government, how much trouble would they save? Such an understanding and reasonable princess consort was truly admirable. Yesterday, he had been tormented by Bian Ruohan several times. In addition, yesterday's matter was caused by Bian Ruohan alone. When Constable Guo looked at Bian Ruohan, who was curled up in the corner of the courtyard, his eyes were filled with disdain. Chapter 937. The commoners who were originally on tenterhooks and afraid of being thrown into jail all heaved a long sigh of relief when they heard this. They came to uphold justice and did such a thing out of greed. Actually, everyone knew in their hearts that they were in the wrong. If the government focused on investigating, would they be able to escape from Huichuan County? Moreover, regardless of whether it was when they had charged into the Lu mansion or when they had robbed the Lu family, these were all their private actions and had nothing to do with the Wang Fu. Wang Fei did not need to speak well of them in front of Constable Guo to protect them. At this time, the commoners could only feel the benevolence of the Wang residents. They all looked at Qin Yining with eyes full of gratitude. After Constable Guo finished speaking, he smiled and nodded at Qin Yining before turning to leave with the bailiffs. Qin Yining laughed inwardly that Constable Guo was an interesting person. He turned to the commoners and said with a smile, "Everyone can disperse." The commoners naturally wanted to stop while they were ahead. They couldn't continue to provoke the Lu family. If they really angered them, they were afraid that even Wang Fei wouldn't be able to save them. But everyone still had so many treasures in their hands. It was enough for them to spend for a while. Even if they hadn't warmed up the things they snatched, they still had feelings for them. They couldn't bear to give up just like that. Qin Yining's words relieved everyone's anxiety at the right time. Take whatever you need with you. Take it with you. Everyone, quickly go home. It's raining heavily outside. Don't catch a cold. With Wang Fei's words, everyone immediately had a pillar of support. They immediately rushed to the door with their belongings without hesitation. Bian Ruohan shouted, "No, no. Put it down. You're not allowed to take anything." How could the commoners listen to her? Of course, they were willing to listen to whoever's orders were beneficial to them. Therefore, everyone rushed out with their belongings like a gust of wind. Only a very small number of people hesitated. "Wang Fei, we've already taken our belongings. How can you settle this privately with the Lu family?" Qin Yining smiled and said, "Don't worry, I will settle this with the Lu family." Did this mean that Wang Fei was going to help them take responsibility for robbing the Lu family's belongings? The commoners shed tears of gratitude and scampered away. There were also a small number of people who felt that it wasn't right to do this and wanted to put down their belongings. Qin Yining ordered the people around her to persuade them one by one. Take all the things back, so that they can save some food at home. Everyone's tears were about to flow out in an instant. Bian Ruohan crossed her arms and walked towards Qin Yining step by step. The courtyard of the Lu residence was in a mess. Being trampled on and dirty was secondary. The most important thing was the things that the mob had plundered. How could Qin Yining be so thick-skinned as to say that she would return it? Fine, fine, fine. I want to see how you're going to pay me back. I spent my own money to prepare every flower and every blade of grass here for my duke. But you made all those rioters run away with just one sentence. You said you would settle this. Fine, return all my rare paintings, antique vases, and jade cups from the previous dynasty to me. You used your own money to prepare all these. That's even better. What? Qin Yining said with a smile, "In order to welcome my lord, I carefully prepared the house. There are countless rare treasures, rare calligraphy and paintings, antique vases, and jade cups from the previous dynasty. They are all my personal belongings. But I didn't expect that they would be robbed by your people soon after I put them there. You not only ordered people to rob my things, but also ordered people to beat my men. You said you want to settle the score. Fine, I'll settle it with you for breaking into the prince's mansion. You. Bien Ruahan pointed at Qin Yining with a trembling finger. You're shameless. Those are all mine. You snatched other people's belongings and still say they're yours. Madame Zhong Yibor is truly admirable. Qin Yining's words made Bien Ruahan so angry that she was jumping on the ground. Her cheeks were purple and she didn't know what to do. She had never been wronged like this in her entire life. Now, she was being treated like this by Qin Yining. The men that Qin Yining had brought with him could only cross their arms and sneer coldly. There was nothing they could do. Wang Fei was too powerful. They had no place to use their skills. Without waiting for them to make a move, Wang Fei had settled the matter with just a few words. Bian Tong could also see this. Bien Ruahan was no match for Qin Yining. She couldn't gain the upper hand in a verbal exchange. Even today's situation, Bien Tong suspected that Qin Yining's men were here to rob the rich to help the poor. It had to be said that Bien Tong was much more perceptive than Bien Ruahan. Qin Yining called the servant girl behind him and turned to leave. Bien Ruahan shouted, "Stop right there. You haven't compensated me yet. You're not allowed to leave." Qin Yining turned around and looked at Bien Ruahan as if he was looking at an immature child. "Compensate you? All right. I've already made myself very clear. First, return my belongings to me. Then, apologize to my servants and compensate for their losses and medical expenses. Then, I'll give them to your family. We're different things. There should be a first come, first served basis, right? You. Qin Yining, you did this on purpose." Bien Ruahan finally came to her senses. Unable to restrain her anger, she shouted, "I'm going to sue you. I'm going to sue you in front of the Empress Dowager and the Empress Dowager. I'm going to do as you wish." Qin Yining's face suddenly turned cold. "I'm right here, waiting for you to sue me." After saying that, he turned around and left with the servants. Bien Ruahan clenched her fists and cried on the spot. What should she do? Everything valuable in her house had been taken away. Before she left, she had boasted in front of Lu Heng and vowed that when Lu Heng came to Huichuan County, all he had to do was stay there and that he didn't need to worry about anything. However, the things she had lost were the treasures she had saved for half her life. "You vicious bitch. I'll fight you to the death." Bien Ruahan rushed out of the door with threatening gestures. However, the carriage of the prince's mansion was nowhere to be seen. Only a few commoners were left. When they saw Bien Ruahan rushing out, these people hurriedly scattered, as if they were afraid that Bien Ruahan would ask them for the things they had lost. Bien Ruahan knelt on the stone tiles soaked by the rain and cried without caring about her image. Qin Yining had already entered the house. "Quickly close the door. Don't let that shrew break in again with her people. They won't. She can only cry. She can't even cry anymore. Haha." Bing Tang held his stomach and laughed. "She dared to rob us. Why can't they be robbed? We'll just treat it as robbing the rich to help the poor. Let's see how arrogant Bien can be." Qin Yining smiled and shook his head. "I've completely fallen out with her. I don't know how chaotic the situation in Huichuan County will be in the future." Chapter 938. Xie Yu smiled and said, "There's nothing we can do about the chaos. We have a lot of serious things to do. If we hadn't dealt with Bien Shi in one go, she would have become obedient. In the future, she might have caused trouble again. It's hard to avoid distracting Wang Fei. Don't forget, there are 6 people living in that house." "Yes." Qin Yining said seriously, "I have to be more careful when I go there these days. After all, those people are not easy to deal with. They might have arranged for a few people to keep an eye on them. We don't know their surroundings, so we have to be on guard." Xie Yu nodded, "That's exactly what I mean. Right now, Bien Shi's vitality has been greatly damaged. She might not have time to make trouble for you in this period of time. She's only thinking about how to explain things to her family. She's already in a terrible fix. We can make a good plan to figure out how to get the stone." Qin Yining actually had some ideas, but she also knew that if she did it herself, it would easily attract the attention of others. It was better to wait and see. Wang Yi should be arriving soon. In a few days, we can discuss with Wang Yi before making a decision. Xie Yu said, 2 heads are better than Zhuge Liang. Wang Yi and Wang Fei are both good at scheming. When the time comes, with Brother Shu and the other strategists, we will definitely be able to discuss an appropriate plan. Qin Yining was completely focused on the matter of the treasure. He did not exchange pleasantries with Xie Yu and only said honestly, I hope so. But this matter is truly difficult. Of course it was difficult. The stone was used by the emperor to build the imperial mausoleum. Even if the local county magistrate and premier had not arrived to supervise the construction of the imperial mausoleum, there would be a day when they would have to face their responsibilities. If the stone was secretly transported out, wouldn't the 2 of them be thoroughly investigated by the higher-ups? Moreover, if they wanted to steal so much stone from the heavily guarded area, even if they knew the rough location of the stone, it would not be a simple matter. So, what method could they use to transport the stone out in the open? Qin Yining was looking forward to Pang Xiao's arrival. That way, they could have a good discussion about the next step. But in contrast to Qin Yining, Bian Ruohan hoped that Lu Heng would be slower. Because her house was really unsightly now. However, things did not go as planned. The next day, Lu Heng and Pang Xiao's team entered Huichuan County. Zhong Yibor, this king will be returning to his residence first. If he is free, I would like to invite Zhong Yibor to my humble abode to have a cup of tea. Pang Xiao lifted the curtain of the carriage and smiled as he cupped his hands in greeting to the other carriage. The blue curtain of the carriage was lifted. Lu Heng smiled and returned the courtesy, saying, thanks to Prince Zhengshiren for taking care of us along the way. When everything is settled, I will invite Wang Yi to my residence for a cup of wine. Certainly. Goodbye. Goodbye. The 2 carriages said their goodbyes and the teams went in 2 different directions. When Pang Xiao's carriage slowly stopped, Qin Yining had been waiting in front of the gate with an umbrella for a long time. The corners of his skirt were stained with mud and water. Pang Xiao jumped off the carriage. Huzi immediately followed with an umbrella. Sister Yi. Pang Xiao only had eyes for one person at this moment. He didn't care about whether he was wet or not. Huzi was very tired chasing after them. He stuck his tongue out at Bing Tang, who was following behind Qin Yining. Bing Tang was amused by him and couldn't help but laugh. Qin Yining looked back at Bing Tang and smiled, saying, did the journey go smoothly? He then told Huzi, I have already arranged the rooms for the brothers. Let Tang Xiu take you there. The kitchen has prepared food. Let's have lunch together later. Such a homely greeting showed that Qin Yining didn't treat them as outsiders. Huzi and Shu Weiji felt very comfortable and had a sense of belonging as if they had returned home. Tang Xiu took Huzi and the others to the front yard to settle down. Qin Yining and Pang Xiao walked hand in hand along the corridor. Pang Xiao held an umbrella to block the raindrops that were blown into the corridor by the wind. Did the journey go smoothly? It went well. It's just that it has been raining for a month. The journey was really difficult. Otherwise, our journey could have been brought forward a few days. Don't bring it forward. You won't be able to see a good show if you bring it forward a few days. Oh. Pang Xiao lowered his head to look at Qin Yining's sly little face. They had been transmitting messages to each other. However, he was about to arrive in Huichuan County, so he didn't spend any effort to find out more. He only ordered someone to inform Qin Yining of his arrival date in advance so that she wouldn't be in a hurry. They hadn't communicated for a few days. Could it be that she had done something earth-shattering again? The 2 entered the room. The servant girl had already prepared a bath and fragrant soup. Qin Yining sent the servants away. He took off his outer robe and rolled up his sleeves to serve Pang Xiao. He also whispered to him what had happened in the past few days. Pang Xiao was overjoyed when he heard that. His hearty laughter sounded particularly heart-wrenching in the bathroom. Qin Yining was infected by his laughter and couldn't help but smile. Do you think I went overboard? No, you didn't. That man surnamed Lu does not have good intentions. He deserves to marry such a wastrel wife. Don't you think his wife is stupid? Pang Xiao turned around. His strong and sturdy arms rested on the edge of the tub. Qin Yining scooped water with a wooden spoon and poured it on his back. She's not stupid. She's just too arrogant and willful. She's not used to this environment and doesn't know what she can and can't do. That's why she makes mistakes sometimes. You. Pang Xiao touched her delicate chin with his big hand and said, you just don't want to talk bad about anyone behind their back, even if that person is really an idiot with bad intentions and stupid thoughts. Qin Yining was amused by Pang Xiao's self-righteous tone and laughed. As long as she was with Pang Xiao, nothing seemed to be difficult for her. No matter how boring something was, it sounded funny when Pang Xiao said it. As long as she saw him, her mood would be extremely good. How could Pang Xiao hold back when he saw her smile like a flower? He stood up and wrapped his arms around her slender and flexible waist and touched her moist lips. Sister Yi, can we have lunch later? Qin Yining blushed and gently pushed his shoulder away. Don't do that. We already agreed that we'll be eating soon. Besides, it's broad daylight now. It's raining anyway and the sky is very gloomy. The hungry man was difficult to deal with, so the two of them didn't go out during lunch. Bing Tang and Ji Yun knew that the masters would be bored with each other when they met, so they arranged a banquet early to welcome Huzi and Shu Weiji. Everyone was very tactful and didn't ask much. The next morning, after washing up, Qin Yining and Pang Xiao gathered Xie Yu, Shu Weiji, and a few other strategists in the study to discuss the current situation in Huichuan County. Chapter 939. Pang Xiao looked at Qin Yining with a smile. Her eyes were full of admiration and love. Her gaze was so warm that it could melt the ice in winter. Qin Yining looked away uncomfortably. He rationally and objectively analyzed, actually, we can't relax too early. Those indulging in pleasure could also be a facade that Guan Dahu purposely showed. I haven't let down my guard. When I go in and out, I'm paying attention to the surroundings to see if anyone is following me. I'm afraid that the 6 people that Guan Dahu let me see aren't all of their men. What you say makes sense. Pang Xiao thought for a moment and said seriously, if they still left people behind, we have to be even more careful. We can't act rashly and alert the enemy. Shu Weiji muttered, now that we know the approximate location of the treasure, we're one step closer to success. It's just that transporting it now is a problem. We can't let Wang Yi be accused of embezzlement, right? That's right. Xie Yu also nodded. Wang Fei has been thinking about a solution these days. She must have made a decision by now. Why don't you tell us so that we can discuss it together? Qin Yining smiled and said, I just have some small ideas. I might not be able to make a decision. Shu Weiji smiled and said, Wang Fei, don't be too modest. Every idea you come up with in the past is very good. Just say it, and we'll discuss it again. Qin Yining thought for a moment and nodded, then I'll show off my slight skill in front of the two of you. Qin Yining stood up and paced for a moment. He lowered his eyes and said, what I'm thinking is that if we don't want Wang Yi to bear the risk of embezzlement, it's better to find someone else to do it. I plan to divert the trouble and then reap the benefits. Qin Yining moved closer to them and told them the plan in a low voice. Pang Xiao said in surprise, you're saying that you plan to tell Lu Heng about the treasure? Yes. Qin Yining smiled. Shu Weiji was a little hesitant. Qin Yining then said, as an official of Huichuan County, rather than letting Wang Yi worry about how to transport it and how to explain it to the higher-ups, it's better to borrow someone else's hands. We can pay close attention to Zhongibor's situation. If there are any abnormalities, it won't be too late for us to act then. Xie Yu nodded repeatedly as she listened. Wang Fei's idea is very good. I think it's feasible. Shu Weiji thought about it and also understood the key point. Wang Fei's idea is very good, but there are some risks. Indeed. Pang Xiao muttered, if the treasure is taken by the Lu clan, although it's better than if it's in the hands of that person above, it's still unsettling. Yes. Qin Yining said in agreement, firstly, we can borrow the hands of others. We only need to observe carefully, and then we can reap the benefits without doing anything. Secondly, if the matter is exposed, we can completely remove ourselves from this matter and have nothing to do with it. At that time, that person above will definitely be very angry, but his anger won't be directed at us. Thirdly, this method can save us a lot of trouble. Zhong Yibor is not a stupid person. Who knows, he might have a way to solve the problem that we can't solve. Qin Yining then sat back down on the seat next to Pang Xiao and smiled. I think it's worth trying such a good method to avoid being implicated. Pang Xiao nodded. After thinking about everything clearly, she agreed. I think this method is feasible too. At worst, we can keep a close eye on it and react faster. Xie Yu and Xu Weiji discussed in low voices for a while. Finally, Xie Yu said, Wang Fei's idea is feasible. It's just that we need to tell Zhong Yibor about this matter. We need to pay attention to strategy. Yes, we can't involve Wang Yi. Xu Weiji nodded in agreement. Then, why don't we use Guan Dahu and the others? Qin Yining suggested. Pang Xiao didn't immediately nod. This method is very good, but if we use Guan Dahu to come forward, you have to disguise yourself to contact them. Didn't you say that you have shown up at the Lu family's meeting? I'm worried that after a long time, your figure and voice will be noticed by them. If they know that the person who contacted them is you, your life will be in danger. This problem was very serious. Every time Qin Yining went to meet Guan Dahu and the others, when he appeared as Qiu Feishan, he would bring along Han Xiao and Zi Yuan, the two newcomers. Although they were smart, they weren't as good as Ji Yun. If he brought too many people with him, it would seem that he didn't trust the other party. If he used Qin Yining's disguise to contact Guan Dahu and the other desperados, it was clearly an act of licking blood on the tip of a knife. Pang Xiao wasn't here before. If Pang Xiao was here, he would never allow Qin Yining to take risks. After all, no one could predict what a person who could be ruthless enough to treat his companions as dry food in the desert would do for the sake of benefits. When Xie Yu thought of this, he couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. He said with lingering fear, Wang Yi is right. It was my negligence before. I didn't think of this. When Qin Yining saw that they were so nervous, his heart was filled with warmth. Even if there were some things that were dangerous to do, for Pang Xiao and the people behind them, the risk was worth it. Things are not as tense as you think. Besides, Mr. Xie's disguise is trustworthy. Previously, it was Qin Yining who disguised himself as Qiu Feishan to contact Guan Dahu and the others. Now, it was really not good to change the person temporarily. Pang Xiao no longer hesitated. He smiled and said, It's okay. At worst, I will also disguise myself and pretend to be your servant. In this kind of situation, we husband and wife are familiar with it. Qin Yining remembered how Pang Xiao pretended to be a playboy and cheated the Lu family of a large sum of money. He couldn't help but shake his head with a smile. That business can't be done. Qiu Yuanqing, who is behind Guangtong, should have been taught a lesson, right? Of course. Pang Xiao said with a smile. Boss Qiu said before that Guangtong has been completely cleaned up by Lu Zheng. They are still looking for people all over the world. The shopkeeper who arranged for Qin Yining to come here with bad intentions was still locked up. After chatting for a while, the tense atmosphere gradually eased, and Qin Yining brought up the topic again. Since we have nothing to do, why don't we go today? Okay. Qin Yining nodded and said, It just so happens that I haven't seen them for a few days. No matter what, I am a small businessman who wants to use them to get close to the Prince Zhongxian's wife. I have to take the initiative to not arouse suspicion. Pang Xiao was amused by Qin Yining's helpless tone and laughed heartily. Don't worry, this time I will be the coachman. If there is nothing, I won't go in front of them. You just do your best. I know your ability. Chapter 940. Xie Yu neatly changed Qin Yining's appearance into his previous appearance. Even the mole on his face was drawn back to its original position. Pang Xiao's face was painted black, and many wrinkles appeared on his face. He turned into an old, burly coachman. Qin Yining still got into the carriage with Ziyuan and Smile. Pang Xiao was wearing a bamboo hat and a straw raincoat. He stood in front of the carriage with his hands on his hips and looked at Qin Yining in the carriage. You took them like this before? Qin Yining straightened his sapphire blue robe and nodded. Yes. Pang Xiao took a deep breath. After a long while, he said, if I knew that you would take such a risk, I wouldn't have agreed to go with you in the first place. He should have pressed her down on his thighs and given her a good spanking. I knew you would think too much. I always do things when I'm fully prepared, although only the three of us went in to meet those people. Qin Yining put his hands on Smile and Ziyuan's shoulders. But there are many people outside to meet us. Pang Xiao looked at Tang Xiu, Huzi, and the others standing behind him. He thought of Jinghu Wei, who had disguised himself as an ordinary person and set off first. Only then did he breathe a sigh of relief. Boss, sit tight. Pang Xiao turned around and jumped lightly onto the shaft of the carriage. He waved his small whip and drove the carriage. Qin Yining, who was separated by a curtain, giggled. Pang Xiao laughed and said, don't tease me later. I might be exposed in front of others. When did I tease you? Qin Yining felt wronged. Pang Xiao laughed and said, I couldn't help but laugh when I heard you laugh. Aren't you teasing me? Rascal. Qin Yining scolded him. Pang Xiao laughed again. Ziyuan and Han Xiao had only been with Qin Yining for a short time. When they saw Wang Yi and Wang Fei flirting with each other through the curtain of the carriage, they lowered their faces in shame. If it had been Bing Tang and Ji Yun, they would have winked at Qin Yining and mocked her. The carriage soon arrived in front of a large mansion. Qin Yining got out of the carriage. Without even looking at the coachman behind him, he instructed Smile to knock on the door. Pang Xiao looked at Qin Yining's back view in men's clothes, which made her look even more charming. She stood there silently, thinking that she would make her wear the same clothes at home. It would look so good. Not long after, a doorman answered the door. Qin Yining led the two servant girls over the threshold and quickly walked into the residence. The gatekeeper smiled at Pang Xiao, the coachman. Hey, big brother, why don't you come in and take a seat to avoid the rain? Pang Xiao thought that it was inconvenient to act through the door, so he might as well go through the door himself. If he heard the noise, he could quickly rush over. He also thought that if Mu Jinghu also came with him, perhaps a wall would not be an obstacle at all. Unfortunately, he was in a hurry to go back to see his wife and children. It would take another day or two to reach Huichuan. Pang Xiao chuckled and pretended to be a rough person. He walked up the porch with a whip in his hand. Thank you, little brother. It's nothing. You're new here, right? I don't think I've seen you before. Pang Xiao smiled and said, our boss has a lot of coachmen. Sigh, I'm lucky this time. It's my turn. The gatekeeper nodded in understanding and invited Pang Xiao to the gatehouse to avoid the rain and have tea. Qin Yining led the servant girls all the way to the front hall. Guan Dahu, Liu Ban, and the others heard that Boss Chiu was here and were already waiting in front of the door. Boss Chiu. Hall Master Chiao. The two sides greeted each other and sat down according to their status. Qin Yining smiled and said, I've been busy these days and have not personally come to visit Hall Master Chiao. Please forgive me, Hall Master Chiao. Guan Dahu waved his hand and said with a smile, Boss Chiu's family business is big, so it's understandable that you're busy. Unlike us brothers, we've been disturbing you in your residence these days. We brothers also feel a little apologetic. Sigh. Hall Master Chiao, you're treating me like an outsider. We're all brothers of the same family. This little sister has neither talent nor virtue. It's already a great honor for Hall Master Chiao to grace me with your presence. If you continue to be so formal, this little sister will be angry. When Guan Dahu, Liu Ban, and the others heard this girl calling herself little sister, they felt inexplicably warm in their hearts. Liu Ban and the others' expressions became much better. Guan Dahu lowered his voice and said with a smile, Boss Chiu, have you thought of a suitable solution these days? Hearing this, everyone pricked up their ears. Qin Yining also lowered his voice and said solemnly, I did think of a solution. It can save us brothers a lot of effort. Oh! Guan Dahu's hoarse voice rose. It could be heard that he was very interested in this matter. Qin Yining said, I wonder if Hall Master Chiao has heard of the big matter that happened in the city yesterday. You're talking about the conflict between the prince's estate and the county magistrate's estate? Guan Dahu said with disdain, that's because the women of the two families are acting recklessly. They've become a joke for no reason. After saying this, he remembered that the person in front of him was also a woman. If he looked down on those virtuous women, he couldn't guarantee that this goddess of wealth wouldn't secretly get angry and deduct their expenses. Therefore, Guan Dahu hurriedly changed the topic. Those ordinary women naturally can't compare to Boss Chiu. Boss Chiu is a heroine among women. Women don't lose out to men. Those ordinary women only know how to fight over men and are naturally disgraced by others. Guan Dahu originally wanted to step on one and praise the other. Never in his dreams would he have thought that he would step on the one in front of him. Qin Yining sneered in his heart when he heard this, but his expression didn't change as he said modestly, Hall Master Qiao is too kind. Those people are all relatives of the imperial family. I'm just an ordinary merchant. How can I compare to nobles? Let's discuss how we're going to transport the treasure out without anyone noticing. Of course, Guan Dahu was happy to hear this. He smiled and said, Boss Chiu has an idea. Qin Yining nodded. He leaned closer and told Guan Dahu what he had told Pang Xiao yesterday. Guan Dahu's eyes darkened. His fists were tightly clenched. His expression had changed from indifference to caution. Qin Yining immediately sensed the change in his mood. He smiled without batting an eyelid and said, Hall Master Qiao, don't misunderstand my meaning. Telling Zhong Yibor about this in private is a good way to kill someone with a borrowed knife. Moreover, with our ability, it's not enough to transport the treasure out without anyone noticing. As long as the Lu family can help us transport the stone out of the stone factory, wouldn't it be easy for us to order people to steal the treasure? You have to know that hiring people to rob a normal caravan transporting stone is different from ordering people to rob the stone for Your Majesty's Imperial Mausoleum. Not only are these two different things, but we can also protect ourselves at a critical moment. We won't lose our lives over this. At this point, Qin Yining smiled and asked, Hall Master Qiao, what do you think? Chapter 941. Qin Yining didn't continue asking, giving Guan Dahu some time to think. He picked up his teacup and fiddled with the lid as he casually sized up the others. However, when he raised his eyes, he met Liu Ban's gaze. Liu Ban didn't seem as open as before. He quickly looked away, then seemed to realize that his actions were a little inappropriate. He looked at Qin Yining with a serious expression and smiled. Qin Yining calmly returned a smile, but his heart was already filled with suspicion. Guan Dahu's thoughts ran deep, and it was hard to tell what he was thinking from his facial expression. Liu Ban and the others were straightforward people who weren't good at hiding their thoughts. From the looks of it, it was obvious that they were hiding something from her. Qin Yining lowered his gaze and put down his teacup, just like he always did. When Liu Ban and the others saw that the other party was no longer observing them, they all secretly sighed in relief. Boss Chiu's idea is reasonable, but that Zhong Yibor and Prince Zhongshiren aren't easy to deal with. Now that they're in charge, we have to be more careful. You're right. Qin Yining nodded with a smile. Guan Dahu continued, however, this is indeed a good idea. Let Zhong Yibor bring the item out, and we can think of a way to steal it on the way. This will save us a lot of trouble. That's right. This method can save us a lot of trouble. However, it's just an idea that I came up with on the spot. As for how we're going to implement it, it's not entirely up to me. We still have to discuss it before making a decision. Although I have some luck in business, I'm still not as experienced as Hall Master Qiao. I still have to listen to your opinion on this matter. Qin Yining's words naturally raised Guan Dahu up high, and he felt extremely satisfied listening to them. Boss Chiu is a heroine, and your idea is also excellent. However, this matter involves a large amount of treasure, so we have to be careful. Qin Yining nodded repeatedly, expressing his understanding. The two chatted for a while more before Qin Yining stood up and bid farewell. Guan Dahu walked him out of the main hall. The rain pitter-pattered down, creating a small puddle on the stone tiles of the courtyard. Qin Yining had no choice but to lead the maidservant out of the courtyard through the corridor. When they arrived at the gate, Pang Xiao hurriedly came out from the gatehouse and said goodbye to the gatekeeper as if they were brothers. "Let's have a drink together another day." "Yes." The doorman nodded repeatedly. Pang Xiao bowed respectfully. "Boss, shall we go back?" Qin Yining was addicted to Pang Xiao's disguise. He found it funny that he had made a friend in such a short time. He nodded lightly to show that he agreed. When they got into the carriage, Pang Xiao drove the carriage out of the corner of the street. Qin Yining suddenly lifted the curtain and told Pang Xiao, "I didn't manage to reach an agreement today. Those people's expressions are strange. Arrange for a few of your brothers to go to their house and check it out. I suspect that they are doing something behind my back." When Pang Xiao heard this, he immediately said seriously, "Don't worry." Pang Xiao lowered the curtain and carefully shielded Qin Yining from the rain. Then, he whistled behind him. Not long after, two Jinghu Wei, who had outstanding lightness skills and were good at hiding their tracks, stealthily snuck into the house. They found a corner and carefully set up an ambush. Percent in the Lu estate, Bian Ruohan nervously gripped her handkerchief and stood next to the dressing table with her head lowered. Yesterday, when Lu Heng returned to the estate, he happened to see a chaotic scene in the estate. After carefully asking about it, he went straight to the Yamen without even seeing her face. When he returned early this morning, Bian Ruohan carefully went forward to help Lu Heng change his clothes. However, Lu Heng didn't need her. He changed into casual clothes and sat on the heated Kang bed by the window to drink tea, leaving her to dry. Bian Ruohan was angry and wronged. She originally had good intentions, but who would have thought that things would turn out like this? She didn't even have any money left, but she couldn't complain. Even if she lost her teeth, she had to swallow it. Tears welled up in her eyes. After holding it in for an entire night, she really couldn't hold it in anymore. Lu Heng put down his teacup and tapped his finger on the heated Kang table, making a very clear sound. "Come and sit." His voice was neither warm nor cold. It could be said to be gentle. Bian Ruohan shivered and broke free from her resentment. She lowered her head and walked gracefully to Lu Heng. Lu Heng smiled. "Sit down. Tell me what's going on. Tell me the cause and effect so that I can see how we should deal with this matter." Although Lu Heng was smiling, in Bian Ruohan's eyes, Lu Heng's expression was very cold. It was as if he was dealing with official business and not facing his new wife. Her tears flowed uncontrollably. Bian Ruohan sobbed and said, "I couldn't stop that group of rioters no matter what I did. They entered the residence and stole our family's things. No matter how I scolded them or ordered people to stop them, it was useless. However, that Qin clan girl came. Not only did she let those rioters go, she even said that she would pay for our family's losses. However, she only said that in front of others and moved her mouth. After they left, I asked her for compensation, but she said that I should first return her family's things and calculate it one by one. Uncle, don't you think that she bullied us?" Bian Ruohan told Lu Heng the most grievous part of her story. However, when Lu Heng heard this, he experienced a different feeling. Faced with such a stupid and restless Bian Ruohan, Qin Yining's intelligence and resourcefulness made him even more fascinated. It was as if her every frown and smile was right in front of him. With Madame Qin Yining as a comparison, Lu Heng's heart was even more moved by Qin Yining, who he couldn't get. However, the person in front of him was the first wife that Your Majesty had arranged for him. He had to consider this and couldn't ignore Bian Ruohan's feelings. "All right, I thought it was something serious. Turns out it was just a quarrel between women. She was being bullied, but Lu Heng only said that she and the Qin clan were quarreling." Bian Ruohan felt a wave of pain in her heart, as if she had been pricked by needles. Tears flowed down her cheeks again. "Uncle, if you say so, what should I do? She was clearly the one who bullied me. If I told you, you should at least help me out. However, you only speak for an outsider." Lu Heng saw that Bian Ruohan didn't see the big picture and only knew how to beg others for the sake of her own feelings. It was as if she was a child who hadn't grown up yet. Lu Heng was already impatient. Didn't you order people to rob the prince's estate in the beginning? Bien Ruahan choked when she heard this. She lowered her head and said, I didn't. I only ordered people to give a small punishment as a warning. I didn't order them to beat people or rob people of their belongings. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.